Do you want to call the meeting to order?
Oh, yeah. All right, this is the meeting of the Planning Board on November 7th, 2013, at 7:30. This meeting is being recorded, both audio and visual, so just keep that in mind, and we're about to start. So if you want to just identify yourself for the meeting.
My name's Attorney Frank Splain. With me.
Mine just grab, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Grab a mic.
Microphone.
And just a little, yeah, just make sure the green light is on. Thank you.
My name's Attorney Frank Splain. I'm here representing Alan Gray with regard to a piece of property on Marshall Street. With us also tonight is Charles Wyman, who is with the Audubon Society. The reason we're here tonight is to bring you up to date on this parcel, because there's a warrant article on your town meeting warrant that's coming up, I think, in about 10 days. We just wanted you to be familiar with this parcel before then, and also to bring you up to date on what's going on here. I'm going to flip this so you can have a better idea of how the property is going. The property is on Marshall Street. It contains approximately 5.56 acres, 400 feet of frontage, and it's zoned residential 3, R3. What we're proposing to do is to divide the property into 2 lots, Lot 1 and Lot 2. Lot 2 is a conforming lot, meets all your requirements for a buildable lot. Lot 1 is an estate lot, so we'll be filing in the future with the planning board to get a special permit for Lot 1. Lot 1 is the lot that's in question with regard to your town warrant article. Just to give you some information about each of the lots, Lot 2, which is a conforming lot, contains 1.2 acres with 246 plus feet of frontage. There's over 228 feet of lot width, a buildable factor of 18, and as you can see, the required circle is in there. Again, Lot 1, which would be the estate lot, which would require a special permit from this board, has over 153 feet of frontage, not the required 200 feet, but since this would be a state lot, it can be shrunk down to as little as 50 feet, I believe. The estate lot would require over 165 square feet. It has 4.2 acres, which is over 186,000 square feet. So we're over the requirement for the estate lot. As you can see, we also have the required circle in there. This is the lot that Audubon is interested in buying. And on your town warrant, there's an article requesting funding, a portion of the funding, to purchase that parcel so that Audubon can control it. The overall price that Audubon's paying is $112,500. It's already been valued for over $225,000, so that the current owners, who is Alan Gray and his sister Janet, will be doing part sale, part gift to Audubon. This parcel has been in the family since 1947 when his father purchased it, and it's just sat vacant since that time. We've looked at the requirements and believe that this meets all the requirements for an estate lot under your zoning bylaws. And again, this meets all requirements for a buildable lot. And we just wanted to come in this evening to see if you had any questions or comments with regard to it, but also so to inform you before your town meeting.
Does anyone have any questions? Do you have any questions on this?
I have one. Attorney Splain, thank you. Just a question. You're going through the estate lot process for, is this going to be a buildable lot, or?
Well, after we file with the board, if we get the special permit to designate as an estate lot, it would be a buildable lot, but it would be sold to Audubon.
Right, well, I guess that's my confusion, is that where you're the Audubon, and normally you're not building things. I just was looking for some clarification there.
We have no intention of building on it, and in fact, we're coming to town meeting to ask the town to join us as partner in protecting it by buying a conservation restriction, which will ensure that the property will never be built on and will always be there for conservation. If we were not around, I think the Grays would still be coming to you with this plan similar to this, to create 2 lots for sale. They were very generous in coming to us first and saying, we plan to sell this property. If you're interested in either or both of these lots, we would be willing to sell them to you at 50% of their fair market value. And we looked at the land, we looked at the values, we said we'd love to buy the larger estate lot, we just don't think we can afford the other one as well. But they are intended to be buildable lots. That supports the value that we're paying. It will support the charitable deduction that they'll be claiming. It's important for a number of reasons for them to both be buildable lots that meet the requirements of the town.
Mr. Wyman, I was just a little confused why you're going through the machinations of an estate lot until you just explained it. That's fine. And is this a CPC purchase?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Where is this located on Marshall Street? I'm having a hard time placing
It's the
it.
only unbuilt-on lot on the street.
If you remember Bristol Pond Estates?
Yes.
Yes, that's right here, and this is the open space lot that you directed them to give to us.
All right, I've got it now.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I have no issue.
So
with
is
this.
Blue Heron part of Bristol? Blue Heron Way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Did you have any questions?
So Lot 2, that's an A&R lot?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And in terms of just transactionally, what happens to that lot?
That lot would then go for sale for someone to build a house on. I know Audubon is still interested in that to some extent, but right now they're concentrating on Lot 1 and getting that taken care of. Alan and his sister would still entertain, selling it to them at a reduced rate, but they're not sure they can come up with the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, do you have anything?
I don't.
No, it doesn't seem as though there's anything out of the ordinary with this. Is there, the only question that I had is, oh, Gino's not here. He'd be the one to answer the question. I just wanted to make sure that that estate lot complies with it. Did you read the zoning carefully to see if it complies with what's written up?
And I did have Gino take a look at this several months ago when I was approached by Mr. Gray. And Gino did say that Lot 1 does conform
Okay.
with the state lot.
Yeah.
I do have one quick question. What if the warrant doesn't pass at town meeting?
Pardon me?
What if the warrant doesn't pass at town meeting? Is the plan still to move forward just without it being designated?
Now, if the warrant doesn't pass, and there's also a major state grant that we've applied for as well, that's an important part of the funding package. If either of those don't happen, I think we need to take a step back and rethink. It doesn't mean we won't go forward, but we're really counting on both those sources of funds to make this affordable for us.
Do you think you'd still move forward right away, or do you think you'd pause and slow down and wait for, the grant, I would imagine, has some sort of lead time to it, not going to happen tomorrow?
We're actually, we should hear sometime in the next month or two. If we do get the grant, it requires that we close by next June.
We are in no hurry to dispose of this property, but it is a significant asset to the family. And eventually, this would apply in other situations.
Oh, because originally you said there's a zoning article on the warrant, and it's
Well,
not
no,
a zoning
no,
article.
I
It's
misspoke.
just an
I said
article for
zoning.
purchase, yeah.
Right.
All right, is there anything other than, yeah, this looks all okay to us that you want to hear?
I know we wanted to inform you, so if you've got any questions at town meeting, or at least seen the plan that we'd be bringing forward.
Looks like it complies, so.
Yeah.
Is advisory board met on that article for sale on there? Have they
I don't know.
approved, have they?
And advisory board support.
Thanks, Tom.
Are there any comments from the public here? No? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
be leaving for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Take care, have a good night. Sure, I'll take one for the file.
Okay, we'd like to open the public hearing for 106 Main Street.
So, Walter's not here tonight, who do you want to read?
Who's next in line?
Who follows up to clerk?
Well, it would go up to Peter and then me, but anyone could read it if they want to. Would you like to read it?
Yeah,
Do you have it?
I do.
Oh, okay, yep, you do.
I like reading it.
This is the 106.
We ready?
Yep.
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40A, and the Norfolk Zoning Bylaws, Section F11, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, November 7th, 2013, at 7:45 p.m. in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass., relative to a site plan application for property located at 106 Main Street in Norfolk, Mass. The applicant, the Michaela Realty Trust of Norfolk, Massachusetts, is proposing construction of 30 single-family unit residential condominiums with appurtenant utilities. The applicant is also requesting special permits to allow residential dwellings in the B1 outside the Business Core District. See Section I.7A1 of the Norfolk zoning bylaws. And for residential density, see Section I.4A11 of the Norfolk zoning bylaws. The applicant has also applied for a stormwater management permit. The property is located in the B1 zoning district, reference Assessors Map 14, Block 56, Lot 1. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
Okay, and you're presenting for, actually, you're presenting for both, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So if you want to identify yourself to
Sure.
present.
I am Jim Pavlik with Outback Engineering, and we have, as has been indicated, a site plan before you that we're seeking approval on. I'd like to go through a brief presentation on the existing conditions and what we're proposing on the site, and then open it up to any questions. What we have here is just a general layout. As you know, there's a second site plan that we're going to be seeking approval also for 108 Main Street. So this is the lot line separating the two properties. And the property in question is to the east of that line, 106 Main Street, where there's an existing house, and it's located in the B1 outside core zoning district.
If I could just interrupt you 1 second. I see you guys straining to see over here, but it is up on the screen up there.
If you'd like,
So
I can
that's
stand
what,
on this side if that makes it easier.
This is.
I can start over if you'd like, just to give you.
That is 106 on the screen.
Yes. What I was describing.
106, this is 108. You drive from...
So again, we're looking at this part of the site. Just for ease of showing the two projects side by side, we combined everything on this presentation plan. Property in question is 106 Main. So part of the site plan set that we have prepared, it includes a boundary survey and topographic survey that Outback Engineering performed. We also had the wetlands delineated by Scott Goddard from Goddard Consulting Services. So that's all new wetland flagging up at the front part of the site. Just for orientation purposes, Main Street is along the south portion of the site. The MBTA commuter rail tracks are along the rear portion of the site. To the east is the old town hall property, and again, to the west is the 108 Main Street property. So on 106 currently there's one existing house that is planned to be demolished as part of the project. There's an existing driveway coming off of Main Street between two ponds and wetland, interconnected wetland system. It's a gravel driveway that then tees off to the house and actually continues on and connects to the paved parking lot in front of the old town hall building. And the rest of the site is a mix of wooded area, some open meadow, whereas the front portion of the site is generally a fairly well-treed area. There was an old historic garden in the front portion of the site also, and that has now become overgrown with brush and so on. We performed a number of test pits on the site ourselves, as well as taking a look at some prior test pits that had been done by two other soil evaluators. And those soil logs by the other soil evaluators were provided in the drainage report that we've submitted. And on these set of site plans, we have, on one of the sheets, provided the soil logs that we did. We conducted about 6 test pits across the site, and generally found the same type of soils that were previously found, that they're generally very permeable, sandy soils, sand and gravel. To the back of the site, which is the highest part of the site, which slopes down towards the pond and a little bit off to the east towards the town property. At the back of the site, again, the groundwater was fairly deep, 10 feet or more. And at the front of the site, we conducted a few test pits in the area of a proposed infiltration basin. The water table there was something on the order a little over 6 feet, actual standing water. And so that's a general overview of the existing conditions. As far as the proposed site development goes, there's a slight change in the site plan application. I think you had read off 30 units was being proposed. We're actually looking for approval for 28. The change on that was to allow some room for a drainage system and some septic tanks. So the site layout, we're looking to provide a common driveway that the two projects will be utilizing. And that would then come into the site and tee off. And we have a looped roadway that connects back on itself. And the majority of the homes that are proposed are going to be outside the buffer zone completely, except for 3 or 4 units right in this area, which are actually located further away from the wetlands than the existing house currently. These are the home styles that are going to be built. It's generally 2 different types of houses. Brick front with clapboard siding, 1-car garages, and each home would have a driveway to accommodate 1 vehicle.
Do you mean the garage?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean the garage to accommodate?
A garage and a driveway, 1 vehicle each, yes. So as far as the utilities proposed for the site, we're looking to extend a water main into the site down the common driveway and to provide water services to each home. We're proposing 2 separate septic systems for this site. where the leach fields would be connected at the back, where we found, again, the deepest groundwater and some of the best soils on the site. And the drainage system is comprised of a couple of catch basins along the ends of the looped road that would flow into water quality inlet tanks for additional treatment and then discharge to underground leaching chamber systems. There's 2 chamber beds proposed. They each have an overflow that discharges to a what we're calling a level spreader closer to the pond. The main driveway coming off of Main Street, we're proposing basically a portion of this portion of the driveway and the entire driveway itself to have a low point at approximately the midpoint, and it would flow into 2 sediment forebays with an infiltration basin that would have an overflow, again, interconnected with the level spreader here. And in analyzing the drainage system, we looked at all of the town's requirements for each of the design storms, the 1, 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and the 100-year storms. We're generally recharging most of the water, so we have a reduction in rate and volume for all of the design storms. And it's otherwise designed in compliance with the DEP stormwater management requirements. And
It's designed for which level storm?
Up to the 100-year storm.
Up to the 100, okay.
Right. We looked at all of those individual storms, though, to make sure that we had a reduction in the rate and volume. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I guess I'd like to open it up to questions if you have any at this point.
Jeff?
Yeah, I guess we've got a series of questions, thoughts that perhaps we could explore. Appreciate your presentation. At a meeting when the project was originally introduced and granted, it was withdrawn without prejudice, but at one time there was discussion about basically a loop and connecting the 108 property to the 106 property proximate to the railroad tracks. And I don't see that in this plan, and I don't know, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, the 108 property, but perhaps we can talk about it now because it also affects the 106 development.
Sure, that's a very good point that I had meant to talk about. And actually, the layout that we have here is based on input from the fire chief. We had run the plans by him, the previous plans that you were talking about, and it was his suggestion, rather than providing a connection to the cul-de-sac across the back of the property, he would prefer to see a fully paved road across the back of the site that looped back. And we also talked about providing an emergency access at the end of this roadway, connecting to the town's gravel road to the town pond access. We're still providing that paved section, whether or not it gets used, but I understand the fire chief has submitted a comment letter, and so we kind of relied on his review of the plan to try to accommodate what he was looking for.
Okay. I mean, you could do both. I mean, you could provide that which the chief said he would like to see and also provide the loop, I believe. I'm not sure there's a technical reason why you couldn't do both in terms of improving the flow throughout the 106, 108 development.
Not with this layout, they couldn't. They'd
Why?
lose a condo over on 108. That's all I'm seeing it anyway.
Yeah, after, again, after receiving his input, we felt it was unnecessary to have that connection. He was comfortable having a full cul-de-sac at that location, which would allow for a fire truck turnaround. So we're not proposing that at this time.
My feeling on that is that, we have a single point of access egress, so we're already in a position which isn't ideal. And so now to have the cul-de-sac in addition to that, as opposed to having the flow, I think that's less than desirable. I'm just one member of the board, but I'm not sure that my opinion on that differs from what it was, a few weeks ago when we had this conversation.
And with all respect, again, I would just indicate that we were relying on the fire chief's input, so that's how we came up with the layout that we have.
Okay. And I respect his opinion, but each of us have our own opinion as well.
Sure.
Done?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
So, I guess in terms of traffic flow, I see the potential to actually build on the flow beyond having the loop that we had discussed last time. I see the potential to actually have some additional flow in the direction of the roads as we have in the 106 property, but that conversation we'll have during the 108 discussion. So I'll table that thought for now.
Okay.
In terms of the open space and the areas for any type of plantings, grass in particular, could you explain to the board what provisions are in place for that within the 106 development?
Sure.
You want to see the landscaping plan, is that what it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, that would probably articulate it.
Okay. It's generally shown on this presentation plan, but there is a landscaping and lighting plan in the plan set.
Yeah, that might be the best one to use.
Okay, sheet 6. I was just going to note that we show street trees along the looped road and the entrance road. And let's see, sheet 6. This is the landscaping and lighting sheet where, again, we've shown some proposed street trees in some regards to supplement the existing trees that are out there. So we requested a waiver on the town's requirement that I believe it's at a 40-foot spacing. So in some locations, we intend to keep some existing trees and supplement them with others.
Yeah, it might be nice if are they on here? Do you show the existing trees so that it's easy for us to?
Yeah, we haven't labeled them just because we thought it would be
Is it
rather-
the lighter gray ones that are
Yes,
existing? And
yes.
are you keeping
Shaded.
everything that's in the lighter, shaded?
No. They're just shown, we generally have the sizes and species of the existing trees. We just haven't labeled them there. That's an additional detail that we could provide if you'd like to see that.
Maybe label the ones that you're going to keep?
Yeah.
Maybe they're in a bolder color or something, or a different color or something?
Yeah, there's a construction period and erosion control plan where we show the work limits. So that gives a better idea of what trees are going to remain. Anything generally inside of that is going to be removed.
And how much of it's going to be grassy?
Do you want an actual area, or?
Any area would be nice, and then just point out where
Okay.
grass will be, because it
I mean,
is
that's-
pretty tight.
That's my concern. I mean,
Well, this-
You've got 28 homes you're looking to construct.
This plan
There
kind
should
of
be
shows
some
that,
adequate space there.
this plan kind of shows that the dark green represents an area that's going to be, remain undisturbed generally. There's the existing gravel driveway that I mentioned right here, so that kind of provides a break between the work limits. And then the rest of the site that's shown in green is going to be landscaped in some fashion, whether, we show a row of arborvitaes along this edge, some street trees. There would be some plantings around each individual house.
What's the symbol in the middle? Almost looks like a fence.
A retaining wall.
So you have that much of a site, an elevation change?
I believe it was only a couple of feet, but we put it in there.
And it just happens there?
It'd be about 2 to 3 feet.
It doesn't happen?
No, just at that location. There's 2 different foundation styles, if you will, for one of the units. This unit here, it's kind of a split level, if you will, with a lower level garage and basement, and then like a half flight of stairs up to the first floor, or actually a landing where you either then go down to the basement or up to the first floor area. So at the back of that building, there's actually a step up. The basement level is down here, and there's a 3 or 4 foot high foundation wall in the back. So that's the reason for including that retaining wall in that area. It was only needed in that one location, and actually another retaining wall at the southern part. So those 6 units in between there have the similar foundation type.
The higher one.
Right.
So in terms of contiguous area for grass, reasonably level to accommodate 28 families, could you describe for the board what provisions exist with that plan? Hey, Gino.
Behind units 5 through 7, there's going to be a level area back there. There's going to be a level area next to Unit 8 over the drainage bed, and over the septic systems at the back of the site. There will be some grassed areas also.
Are these going to be decks off the backs of the houses?
Yes.
And you envision grass all in between?
Yes.
And the dimension between units?
It's about 12 feet.
12 feet.
12 feet minimum.
So really not a lot as far as any contiguous grassy areas around the units themselves. It would be on the fringes of the development. There would be some, I think is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, generally, all the areas around the units are going to have grass. In terms of a large, expansive baseball field size parcel, no, there's nothing like that.
Well, I mean, what most of us would consider a typical front yard. I'm not sure you have that either.
This is high density.
I mean,
It's high density development.
Right.
It's a
Yeah,
little bit different.
the buildings are set back from the pavement about 20 feet, so it provides a 20-foot long driveway, and yes, generally small yards. Low maintenance would be the intent.
I lived in Milton. Our front yard was less than 20 feet from the sidewalk. So it didn't take long to mow.
Yeah, this is going to appeal to a certain type of buyer. It's not They're all two-bedroom homes, so they're not intended for large families. They're going to be empty nesters, maybe a couple with a child. Generally, I don't see large families occupying these homes.
Okay.
You done?
Well, I'll give others a chance. I'll jump back in.
Yep. Michelle, you have questions?
Fire chief had also outlined, similar to, and we've seen this before, the desire to see some additional engineering on the, what is he calling it, the crossing, the reinforced concrete pipe that's traversing and the crossing that's over it.
Oh, he's talking about the
Yeah.
pipe that goes this way.
So the road and everything over it. So the road is being proposed part of 106?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a driveway?
Yes, this will all be a privately maintained property by a condominium association.
I think we've heard a handful over time of concerns, questions about engineering, infrastructure, viability, slopes, grading, sensitivity to wetlands. Can you walk us through that drive a little bit?
Sure. I can generally show you on the grading sheet here. Currently, there's an 18-inch RCP pipe, reinforced concrete pipe, that connects the two wetland areas underneath the driveways, and we're going to be removing that and replacing it with a three-sided box culvert.
Also out of concrete?
Yes. And there'd be some short retaining walls on both sides to hold back the soil at those points. Otherwise, we're proposing a 2-to-1 side slopes through those areas to minimize the amount of fill and the impact due to the closeness of the wetlands in those areas.
Does it just act as a culvert for water passage between the wetlands, or does it have utilities going through it, or?
No utilities through it. We have to cross the utilities over it. The water.
You going to do an adjacent utility bridge, or are you going to run them between, under the road, in the roadway above the culvert?
That's something that, one detail that we'll work out with the water department, but potentially we're going to have the water main going underneath the culvert.
Oh, under the culvert, okay.
Yeah, and gas and cable, underground electric cable utilities over the top of the culvert.
But under the road.
Right.
obviously.
How wide a culvert?
40 feet and
That's the length, sorry,
Right.
the opening.
10 foot wide, about 3.5 foot high.
Okay.
It's much larger than the existing ditch there, but we're trying to comply with the Massachusetts stream crossing guidelines, which
That is,
they
it's
want
all,
open.
it's acting as a
They
culvert
want big
for.
open for wildlife
water.
passage.
I would assume the plan would be to use the existing while the new one is being constructed, to somehow have it proximate, but not necessarily in the exact same location in terms of the new versus the old, because there is flow, potentially year-round flow.
Right now, it's dry, and I believe it's dry for extended periods. So it's probably a type of project that could be done during the drier time of the year. But I believe as long as I've seen it over the last couple of months now, it's been dry.
I have something like that on the front of my property also, which is relatively dry. So the wet season is right around the corner. It's it's probably within the next couple of weeks. Do you have more, Michelle?
I know that there had been concerns from the public in the past about potential traffic impact. Are you looking into that at all in terms of that intersection of the new drive to the road?
We're requesting a waiver from a traffic study. I guess our general feeling is that overall the traffic generated from the project might be something on the order of 500 vehicle trips per day, but interspersed over the course of the day, it's generally low traffic volumes. So we've requested a waiver on that traffic study.
And no other requirements in a development like this in terms of setbacks to,
No, this all complies with the way the new zoning's been
Yeah.
written.
I don't have any other questions
All
right
right.
now.
Greg?
Michelle took care of my biggest questions. So I don't think I have anything at this time.
Okay, is there any approval for the access to the adjacent property for that other emergency access?
Required, approval required? Or approval already given?
Yeah, well,
Any
has there
above?
been a request for approval, or
We did
approval already given, or?
Right, we did meet informally with Jack Hathaway and one of the selectmen, and then attended a selectmen's meeting, again informally, just to present the idea, and they were not in favor of endorsing any type of formal approval for such. So the short answer would be, there's no town approval currently.
Now, if it comes to the point where that access road is going to be there, is there a gate planned?
Yes.
For that point, do you have a detail on that?
Not a detail, but we're generally showing a locked gate that's labeled at the end of the paved roadway there. So there's about a 40-foot gap between the gate and the property line.
And what's the width of all the roadways throughout here?
We've proposed 22-foot paved roads with Cape Cod berm, both sides, a grass strip, and then the sidewalk, 4-foot sidewalk. So that requires a waiver also. That's noted on the plans.
Okay, I had a note about the conduit also. But what is a level spreader?
It is a water calming device, a velocity dissipator, if you will, to allow water to, the runoff to spread across a larger area rather than concentrating in one area.
And this level spreader is coming off of the detention basin? Is that what it is?
It's coming
If
off.
it gets up to a certain height, is that the way it's designed?
We have these, there's actually 3 underground leaching chamber beds. One is, this one here between the units is for connecting the roof drains between, there's a total of 14 units on the inner loop. Those roof drains would all be connected to this set of leaching chambers. Then the looped roadway is connected to 2 chamber beds here. They all have overflows that are interconnected that flow down to this area here.
Oh, so it's the overflow from it?
Yeah.
Just the overflow?
It's actually, the way we have it designed is to actually discharge some of the runoff from some of the larger storms. So it's a combination device.
Now, the 2-to-1 slope that's next to the drive, the access drive,
Yes.
how deep is that? Or should I say, how elevated is the drive?
We have the road profiles shown on sheets 4 and 5, and it's a maximum fill just under 4 feet, just about 4 feet.
If it's a roadway or a drive, does that require any kind of curb, not curb,
Guardrail.
guardrail? Yeah, that's it, thanks. For a driveway like that?
Tom? Yeah, it's probably borderline. I think I'd put one in.
We are proposing one
Oh, you
along
are
that section.
proposing
Yeah,
one.
especially where we have that box culvert, and that's going to be at a lower elevation, so,
A wooden rail?
yeah, wood post and beam guardrail.
And the one thing that, that you mentioned but didn't cover was the lighting plan.
Yes. And referring back to sheet 6.
These the only lights? Oh, must be.
We're proposing 3 lights across the main driveway area, and 1 at the end of the loop and 1 at the end. Our thought was, in doing that, all the homes are going to have porch lights and garage sconces, and we didn't want to overlight the area.
Yeah. What kind of lights? Are there details on the lights?
We have a model spec'd out, but
Oh.
they're on 14-foot poles, and the spec is provided up there.
What kind of lighting are they?
It's a, I'll generally describe it, it's a rectangular or square head mounted to the
Oh,
square
facing
pole,
down?
Facing down.
Oh,
right.
okay. Like the ones all over.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, we'll have to ask the, there you are. Yeah. Do you like having lights spilling out onto the roadways, or would you prefer that it was shielded? No, not you, I'm talking to...
Bob.
No, in the back, Bob.
I couldn't answer that without looking at the detail.
Oh, okay.
There's adequate lighting out there on Main Street at this entranceway right now, so I couldn't answer that right now.
All right.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Can you walk me through the sidewalks? I'm a little confused.
Okay, there's 1 sidewalk proposed. We're going to have a 2.5-foot grass strip and then a 4-foot sidewalk that's existing on Main Street. There's a very nice concrete sidewalk, so we'll be connecting to that. And then it runs along the left side of the main entrance drive.
Yep.
And then cuts across the main entrance, across the front of these units, 1 through 7, and then loops to the last home at Unit 11.
And stops.
Stops there. And then it also, from the main entrance, it also crosses the street to pick up the 108 property, and then loops around again to the 5 units on the 106 property, and again ends there.
Why don't you just connect these two around?
We could, if you'd like to see that.
How do you feel about that, Michelle?
I don't know. I need to process it for a minute.
Well, that's all the questions that I have right now. Do you have any more, Jeff?
I'd like to talk a little bit more about groundwater in terms of the data that you have. And, it's probably a fair statement that PSC, you probably have not had an opportunity to really comb through this, I assume.
Unfortunately not. It's a detailed set of plans.
Yeah, and the board really, we just had visibility as far as these plans on Monday of this week, just for the, folks to be aware that, so we've only seen this for about 3 days.
Sure.
So I'd like to get a thorough understanding of what data exists, whose data it reflects, and make sure that there's a sufficiently comprehensive engineering analysis done on stormwater for the site. There's a lot of water in that area, both surface water as well as groundwater. And, I think it's important, if we're talking about putting that many units there and adding additional water to the ground, that we thoroughly understand the condition there.
Sure. I'll give you a general overview of what we did. Again, we had some prior soil logs done by 2 other soil evaluators. There was one set that was done and witnessed by the Board of Health agent, Wade Saucier. And a second set that was done about 3 years ago by another engineer and soil evaluator. So we had, and those test pits were generally on the upper part of the site here. All the test pits are shown on sheet 3. We have a legend here that shows who did which pits. And so primarily the work that I did was to look at a couple of test pits in the infiltration basin area, and then some random test pits across the site just to corroborate the findings of these other soil evaluators. And again, generally they were fairly similar results, generally deep groundwater, very sandy soils. And we took all of that data into account in laying out the drainage system and accounting for groundwater mounding impacts. We did do some groundwater mounding calcs that are in the drainage report. And so the bottoms of all of these leaching chamber beds and the infiltration basin are at least 2 feet above the water table that we found. And generally that's what we did.
Okay. We'd discussed the architecture. You have a couple different models that the board received that information in about the same time frame that we received the plans. I'd like to request that be entered into the plan set as a formal part of the development. I think if we're talking about that many units, we should be on the same page today, tomorrow, and the next day in terms of what those units consist of. Is there any objection to that?
No, we can do that. So you'd like to make it an additional sheet of the plan set? Okay, sure.
Okay, just a minute. Gino and Tom, have you got any comments that you want to make before I open it up to the public?
I don't, because I also had not had a chance yet to thoroughly review them.
I think it's better if we do the formal written report and allow Mr. Pavlik to respond to that. So.
All right, so we're going to open this up to the public. You'll have to speak into a microphone and identify yourself for the record. Okay, Bob?
Bob Nicodemus, Design Review Board. 2 or 3 comments, which I'm going to say hypothetically because we've only seen the drawings for a couple of days ourselves. It appears that the unit layouts on the site conform to discussions we had in the end of September, where they aligned garages together and so forth. So that's what we saw in the plans as being conforming. The elevation package is similar to one that we saw, however, there are no colors indicated, and the Design Review Board can't make comments too much until we have had a chance to have a review on that. I'm assuming that this will not be closed tonight, otherwise we'll have to review that.
Yeah, that's a good assumption.
We did issue a memorandum at the end of September, around the 26th, 27th, which confirmed our initial discussion, and I just wanted to say that it appears that this project is from a layout standpoint, conforming to that discussion.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Yes, go right ahead.
Candace Colby, 105 Main Street. I have a few questions and a couple of comments. What kind of curbs did you say you're putting in?
We're proposing a Cape Cod berm.
And that's concrete?
It's a asphalt pavement.
She needs to, can you just turn your button on, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So that you're not considering putting the granite like it is on the street, just like
bring it around the corner? No?
No, that's, again, we're requesting a waiver from the planning board's regulations, so that's something I'm sure we'll have discussion further on that, but our request is to propose the Cape Cod berm.
Okay, and now the width of the street, you're talking about asking for a waiver of the width of the street. I live right directly across the street from that, so it just seems like with the snow particularly, it's pretty difficult to get onto Main Street. Sometimes it piles up really high. I have trouble getting out of my driveway. I'm not sure it's a good idea to make the street more narrow, but that's not my decision. It just seems like that's a little problem to me. And I pretty strongly oppose the idea of a traffic study waiver because I think that's a lot of cars. I mean, maybe I'm just, maybe that's not, but it seems like a lot. And that's a pretty busy road. Especially during the busy times of day, you have a lot of traffic. It's pretty difficult, not that often, but at the busy times of day, it's a little difficult for me to get out of my driveway. But, my God, with, 200 more cars, and there might be piling back, especially during the busy time. I just think it's going to be a little bit crowded. I think it's going to be a problem, but, so I oppose that. And, let's see. I noticed this morning that the lights coming out of that driveway, because it was dark in the morning, and I noticed that the lights coming out were really hitting my upstairs window. And that's just one car. And I'm thinking when it's dark, we're going to be bombarded with, headlights every, 2 minutes? And I know that you've said that you would put in the hedges or some sort of trees, and I think that's fantastic. But they're going to have to be pretty tall trees because those headlights really come up to the second story. And I was kind of looking out there and I was noting that those trees are going to have to be significantly tall, so that's just a comment. And are you going to have signage on this? Like, Norfolk Crossing Estates or something like that?
We haven't shown anything yet, but I imagine that there would be some type of signage provided at the front of the site, yes.
Okay, I object to that, but, I'm just stating it for the record that I objected. And then the last thing, I was wondering if you have any idea how long the construction is going to take?
2 to 3 years. It's going to depend partly on market conditions. You know what has happened with the recession. Things can certainly derail things, but I think if, under normal market conditions, I think we're looking at a 2 to 3 year build-out period for the entire site.
And does that enter into the traffic study with the, vehicles in and out over a 2 to 3 year period? Is that I don't even know if that's part of the traffic study, but I think that's a concern for me, is the vehicles in and out,
Construction vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, the traffic study will only be with existing traffic with a calculation for this site.
Okay.
That's how it's done. They don't follow it during the entire construction
Right,
of it.
I understand that. Okay, I actually think it looks nice, and I think you've done a nice job, but I do have those pretty strong concerns, particularly the traffic study and the lights and the width of the road.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry I took too much time.
Yeah.
Hi, Peter Diamond, 84 Seccong Street. I echo many of Candy Comby's considerations also. In addition, what considerations do you have for visitor parking for the property, other than the driveways for the units themselves? Let's say someone has a big party and they have 20 or 30 people come over. Where are they going to park?
Generally, I think what would probably happen is along the outer loop, there's the shoulders of the roadway that vehicles could park.
Would that be a concern for the fire chief? Have you discussed that with him? in the plans for the road coming in and out that he had discussed with you, was parking for parties and visitors considered?
I did not have that specific discussion, no.
Right, I see that as a concern. I think it should be considered in the final plan. As far as all the waivers, there were a lot of waivers discussed during the previous attempt on this property, waivers for a watercourse study, soil testing and whatnot. What's your position on all the waivers for the property? Could you explain some of the waivers you're seeking?
We have the waivers listed on the plan, and there are a number of waivers. Some of them are drafting related or some of these studies that we're talking about, but
could you explain a watercourse study, and should the abutters be concerned whether or not that's done? Is that one of the things you're waiving?
I'm not sure what the watercourse study was.
We haven't even discussed waivers, so you can't question them about whether or not something is going to be discussed, because we'll have a complete report from our advisors, and at that time, we'll discuss the waivers.
And all the groundwater, I mean, from rain and whatnot, where's that going to go from the property downstream? How is that going to impact the abutters?
Well, again, I've described generally where we're proposing some catch basins. Some of the roof runoff is going to be collected in underground leaching chambers. The roadway runoff is going to be either collected in 2 other underground leaching chamber beds with overflows that are going to discharge towards the pond on 106. And then the main entryway is going to be, the runoff from there will be recharged into an infiltration basin.
Is there an outlet on the pond at 106?
There is.
So everything's going to flow into the pond and then go downstream from there?
Correct.
Is it a wet or dry infiltration basin that you're creating?
Dry. It would drain out within a 72-hour period.
72 hours?
It's less than 72 hours, but that's the DEP requirement for our 100-year storm.
If you remember, I had asked the question earlier about that, what was it called? The level spreader.
Right.
And so all of that, what he's saying that's flowing towards the pond, that's only the overflow from their catchment basins. They have an infiltration system, but if you get a 100-year storm, it may overflow, and at that point, then it would spread across whatever lawn is there or something, and it would head towards that pond.
I was concerned that right now, as open space, the ground absorbs a lot of the rainwater, but with all the new buildings, the water's going to end up in the pond and going downstream.
Well, most of it goes into the infiltration basin.
Most of the codes require that recharge back into the ground.
And it does. That's what that basin's for, the one that's going to drain within 72 hours.
I think Candy Comby covered most of my other questions, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. So, when would we like to schedule a return?
I might suggest that might be up to your consultants as to how quickly they could turn around comments. And do you normally allow us time to prepare a response and revise plans, or?
Depends on how quickly you get the comments from them. But when's our next meeting? We've already scheduled the next one, right? Yeah, our next meeting is December 3rd. If you get it to them, you'll definitely have them.
We already have them, so.
You already have comments from?
No, we have the plans.
Right.
We can have comments well before December 3rd.
Yeah, you'll probably have them within a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So you want to get on the 3rd agenda on the 3rd?
Yes.
How's our agenda looking on this?
We've got a 7:45 and we've got an 8 p.m.
What is the 8 p.m.?
Shire Drive.
State law, 77 Norfolk, what's that?
Well, may as well try for 8:15 anyway, right? 8:15 sound good with you?
Sure.
Okay. So,
I'm gonna move to continue the hearing, the public hearing on 106 Main Street to Tuesday, December 3rd at 8:15 PM.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
thanks.
very much. Okay. Going to open the next one?
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40A, and the Norfolk zoning bylaws, Section F11, public hearing will be held on Thursday, November 7th, 2013, at 8 p.m. in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass., relative to a site plan application for property located at 108 Main Street in Norfolk, Mass. The applicant, the Pasture Development Group, LLC of Mansfield, Massachusetts, is proposing construction of 23 single-family residential houses with appurtenant utilities. The applicant is also requesting special permits to allow residential dwellings in the B1 outside the Business Core District, see Section I-7A1 of Norfolk zoning bylaws, and for residential density, see Section I-4A11 of the Norfolk zoning bylaws. The applicant has also applied for a stormwater management permit. The property is located in the B1 zoning district. Reference Assessors Map 14, Block 56, Lot 7. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
Okay, come on up. You may have to re-identify yourself. It is a new hearing.
Good evening again. I'm Jim Pavlik from Outback Engineering. So this is the second half of the project that we've been discussing, and so that's the left side of the project here, and on there it's about a 3.86 acre site. Again, in the B1 outside core zoning district, and we're proposing 22 single-family detached condominium units thereon.
So that's another edit from the 23 to 22.
Okay, so again, we Outback Engineering performed a property line and topographic survey of the property. The wetlands were again delineated by Scott Goddard, and that's generally shown at the front of the site here with the interconnected wetland through to the other pond on 106 Main. And for orientation purposes, the MBTA rail tracks are to the back of the site, Main Street to the south. It borders the 106 Main Street to the east, and there's two residential properties to the southwest, and then commercial property off to the further to the west. This parcel is, again, as I mentioned, 3.86 acres. It's presently there's presently a home with several barns and outbuildings where there's horses and goats and so on. The back part of the property is generally open pasture land and a small garden area. And the front of the site is generally, there's a small lawn area in front of the house, and then generally wooded around the pond and to the front towards Main Street. We did, again, some test pits across this property to supplement the information that we had, again, from another soil evaluator who performed some test pits primarily at the back of the site where the proposed septic system is going. And again, we generally found sandy permeable soils with the water table ranging from about, based on modeling, towards the western part of the site, within about 4 feet of the ground surface. And again, to the back of the site, it was 10 or 12 feet or more. And, well, then again, the rest of the test pits for the infiltration basin that we've talked about on the 106 Main Street property. The layout is again shown on this presentation drawing. We have the main entrance drive and then a single cul-de-sac roadway proposed where the 22 homes would be located off of there. Again, 22-foot pavement with a Cape Cod berm, a grass strip, and then a 4-foot sidewalk on one side is proposed. We're proposing, again, 2 septic systems to be located at the back of the site for leaching area. And all the homes would be served by town water, underground electric, and gas services. And for landscaping, we're proposing some street trees along the main entrance drive and around the cul-de-sac roadway itself. Again, due to the spacing of the homes, we're requesting a waiver from the 40-foot spacing requirement on the trees. But we've generally shown what's a nice layout of trees across the site. And there's also a row of arborvitaes proposed with a stockade fence along the railroad, just a fence, and to the west side, and then along the abutters property, the Diamonds and the Finlands, we're proposing a 6-foot stockade fence set back from an existing stone wall with arborvitaes in front of that. And the drainage system is similar to the 106 Main Street property.
These.
Yeah. More than 40 feet. Almost.
We have 2 underground leaching chamber beds. The cul-de-sac area, we're proposing an island on the inside of the cul-de-sac that would have sediment forebays, and those would overflow into one of the chamber bed systems, and then a second chamber bed system that would collect runoff from the rest of the roadway. There's a catch basin and a water quality tank proposed there. Those 2 systems are interconnected with an overflow provided between the units, discharging to a grassed or vegetated swale that would discharge towards the pond on 108 Main. And again, that's a similar drainage system to what I described on the 106 Main property. If you have further questions on that, we can talk about it, but I think that's it, generally in a quick overview. Similar home says what was proposed on the other site also.
Similar in terms of even being able to adopt that into
They're
the plan
the
set?
same, yes.
So why did one public hearing refer to them as single-family unit residential condominiums and the other as single-family residential houses? This one's houses, the other one was condominiums.
They're all planned to be a condominium form of ownership. They're single-family detached units is how I would describe them. From a
And they just want to make
legal
that
perspective,
consistent.
there might be something more to it, but
Was that intentional?
I just wrote it up from what I took off the application.
So they were going to be virtually identical then, I guess.
yes.
Do you have any questions on this one, Jeff?
where these are being introduced as separate projects, and I do appreciate the fact that them being on one plan set does help in terms of the master plan, so it does help in terms of, us being able to look at it comprehensively, even though they're being introduced as separate projects. I really have no alternative than to be a bit redundant on a few of the items.
Sure.
I really have to for the record. So, it's my understanding that at this point, the future in terms of a secondary point of access egress towards Old Town Hall is uncertain. That's based on the Board of Selectmen meeting that you participated in recently. So is that correct?
Correct.
Fair statement.
Again, the selectmen were not in favor of endorsing any type of approval for it, but we are showing both the emergency access on the 106 Main property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there have been comments in the past that even in a scenario where there's a single point of access and egress, there are benefits in terms of flow to have connectability between the 108 development and the 106 development, the budding development, back towards the railroad tracks. So I can speak for myself personally. I still would prefer to see that type of layout. And as you've pointed out, the fire chief has made some comments which did not include that type of request or requirement.
Correct.
But this member still feels as though that would be an improvement.
Fire chief referenced Arnold Road.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody know what that's referring to?
It's the elderly complex over on 115. Do you know the one?
The other way.
On Boardman Street?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's
Yeah,
it
it's
called?
set back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the 108 development, perhaps you could describe for the board the offset between the rear of the property, which is closest to the Finland and Diamond property. Perhaps you could review that dimension for us?
Sure. You may recall the last time I was here, at that point, the units were actually closer than what we're now proposing.
No. The measurement.
So as we went through this design phase, we actually shifted the roadway and these units further away from the property line so that there's, the homes are 20 feet to 24 feet behind the Finlands, and generally approximately 20 to 24 feet, units 9 and 10, and then one unit, it's just the corner of the building that's as close as 17 feet to the back of the Diamonds property. But again, there was an improvement over the prior plan that we were discussing at one point. There are decks along the back there also that would be closer. They're 8-foot wide decks.
Shouldn't it be measured from the deck to the property line? Isn't that part of the structure if it's a deck?
Sure.
So it's really not 17 feet. It's probably more like 14 feet or 13, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. So, I still have some concerns about that. Once again, the engineering analysis, because, we've had a few different parties involved in assessing groundwater and soil modeling, et cetera. I appreciate the fact that it sounds like these plans have been coded so it's clear to the reader who has done the work in each particular test pit, if you will, which engineer was involved, et cetera. So I guess I look to PSC to review that in detail And we need to make sure that we have sufficient information, that there's enough information, and the information we have is credible, all of it, if we're including it as part of our engineering analysis.
I fully respect that, and I'll defer to Mr. Houston and his review of the project. I can see that we will require some additional test pits in the area of the septic system and possibly directly in the area of the drainage basin or the leaching chambers that we're proposing. But again, we did do additional testing to try to verify the soils that are out there, and we're relatively comfortable with what we've come up with.
Okay. And just to be clear, I think Michelle had brought this up, but just want to be clear that the architectural renderings of the structures, the two different models that have been presented to the board, will be included in the plan set as a formal part of the development. So you're agreeable to that?
Yes.
What I heard.
Yes.
Okay. If there is no secondary access egress to the 108, and I'll limit my comments to 108, but really, there's a common drive that's being proposed that's going to service 108 as well as an adjacent property that's fairly significant in scale. I think there are two things that need to be assessed, and what is a reasonable number of units in terms of bedrooms, people, what have you, for a single point of access egress. I've brought this up before, but I need to bring it up again because the original project in this case was denied without prejudice. So I need to bring it up again that we do have regulations which refer to cul-de-sacs, and there are certain limits in terms of the number of units that can be serviced in that type of scenario. So with 1 point of access egress, there's a practical question of what is a reasonable number of in this case, structures, single-family homes. And so each of the members of the board individually and collectively will have to sort through that. But along those lines, I don't think it'd be unreasonable for there to be provisions for secondary access in the future, perhaps to the Finland Diamond type property, so that whether it be detailed in terms of location or perhaps referenced in terms of station markers, that at a future date, that if in fact provisions were made by abutters, that the town would be able to facilitate that there would be no issue in terms of structures in the way, preventing that in terms of where these structures are built on the 108 development, and also that it would be clear in terms of the provisions of the approval that there's adequate space.
So you're saying that they have to provide access to an adjacent parcel is what you're saying?
It's just a question of how
they can't
we
block it.
articulate that. But I think if there is no secondary access, and we all accept the fact that that is much preferred for there to be secondary access, I think the board would be remiss in not ensuring that the secondary access could be available in the future if the abutters were to express interest.
Okay.
So now what that does, it expands the conversation to include the layout of the structures on the 108 development. And this whole question of looping and alternative layout, I've only had the plans for a few days. I have some ideas. Not sure it's appropriate just yet to share, my ideas. I'd like to give everyone else, other people on the board a chance to participate, as well as, people are here from the public. So I guess with that, I'll defer any further comments that I have.
Okay.
Greg, do you have any? Oh, never mind. Unless you want to go right ahead.
Units 11, 12, a duplex?
Yes.
Okay, so if we could just see that reflected in the different typologies that are being presented, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'm a little confused about the drive. Is the drive being presented as part of this application as well? Construction of the drive?
The main entrance drive?
Yeah?
Yes.
So it's included in both?
It is on both plan sets, reflecting that they are sharing that driveway.
Okay, but all the same details, the same exact,
Exactly.
everything?
Yes.
And I'm actually kind of glad to see that because, you know, just thinking the what-if scenarios, if in fact one side or the other falls through and does not actually get built, I'd also like to see taken into consideration that access of the drive, if in fact that were to happen. So if this didn't happen, you know, does it need a hammerhead or something? And likewise, if this half were not to happen, does it need a hammerhead or something? As you're considering that drive, you know, and it just looking at it in its narrow little scope and not considering there's another half to it, it should reflect, I think, the proper condition and detail for that.
Well, is there going to be phasing for the roadway, or is the roadway going to be constructed all at the same time?
The roadway in Drive B?
No, the whole thing, the whole road.
Oh, Drive A, B, and C?
Yeah.
I can say that the applicants are working cooperatively at this point, and
You never know, right?
there's probably some fine details we might need to get into, but we have shown a construction sequencing plan in the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
And what does that show? Does that show ideally that the roads are done at one time?
I would have to refer back to it, but I think it was an either-or scenario that we presented, that either the developer for the 108 Main is going to
Do the roads?
do the entrance road, and then and phase construction so that he'd build 108 Main first, and then a second phase that would result in the development of the 106.
So the detailing should just represent that for each application, is all
Sure.
I'm saying.
Some type of hammerhead
Something that would...
T connection there.
Yeah.
Just to go along with that, the road is in both properties.
Right.
So,
Right.
And it's being submitted as part of both
right,
applications.
but then there's still because it's, how does that even work? How do you?
We have an easement.
They'd have
You'd have to get right.
You'd have the easement.
You need
That would have to
cross
be done as part
easements
of
so
it.
that either one
One
could
fell through.
construct it in its entirety and maintain it. Is there going to be one or two condominium associations?
There will be two condominium associations, so
And-
it'll always be two separate ownerships with a cross easements, like
If one defaults,
the other would have the ability to do whatever maintenance would be required.
requirement to do the
Those are some fine
entirety of the
details that we can
maintenance,
work out.
you know. In terms of stormwater, you have to make sure there are cross easements for the road. It's complicated.
We've provided some language in the, both the long-term operation and maintenance plan and the drainage report, and the construction period stormwater pollution prevention plan, that generally tries to get our arms around that.
This is kind of pioneering. I don't, there is no common driveway of this nature in the town. In fact, I don't think there's a common driveway that's been approved in recent memory that were, there was a proposal for a common driveway, but it was like two single-family houses sharing the drive. And it was never brought to approval anyway, but there's no precedent for this, so we're kind of trying to figure out the process as we go on here.
At some point, we'll have to prepare condominium documents that would specify all of those requirements for maintenance and so on, but I'm sure there's a way to work out those details.
They built the central
That's all we
lobby,
have.
I guess. you know.
Greg, do you have any other questions?
Well, that isn't working too well.
I wouldn't use that one as an example.
Bad
It
example.
cost 3 times what they said it was going to cost.
Not this time.
Oh, okay. You guys are going to not have any comments or questions
Right.
until after you've reviewed everything. Okay, I'm going to open it up again to the public. If anyone has any comments on the other one, the 108, the 106, or it's 108, sorry. The 108 development. Yeah.
All right, I'll get it started.
Yep.
So you're going to raise the grade in any way in the back area where the duplex is? I'm sorry, Peter Diamond, 114 Con Street. Here representing my father who owns 114.
That part of the site is generally, as you know, one of the higher areas, that back corner. So the front area where the roadway is going to be filled, but the back of the building is, it's not filled in the back, where there's going to be a swale provided along the back property line to get water over, or runoff over to the drainage swale towards the pond. So there's no grading, right along the property line, no filling.
And that swale, that's going to prevent any flooding from my father's property.
Yes, that's the intent.
Big concern for my father, because his basement is almost lower than the pond in front of his house, so any water that's added to his property is of big concern. And that needs to be managed and planned for. You said you have the fence going all the way along the tracks, along the side, and along the Diamond and Finland property, is that correct?
Yes.
It's
Just
the
wanna make
back of the
sure.
Finland property, right?
Correct, along the back property line.
Not the side.
It would end here.
Isn't it marked on the side, or is that,
It's,
was I
it's
not
on the
looking?
landscaping here. No, it's not.
Oh, okay, I thought I saw it.
So see, this is the fence symbol. It ends here. Goes here
Doesn't
and
it-
here.
yeah, it does go
And then
there.
here. No, but he said the Finland.
Oh, this side, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're proposing it to end at that corner.
Mhm.
And it's going to remain, well, it's not really wooded over there.
I don't know. Is that it?
No, once again, I'd like to see if the applicant has considered visitors to this side of the property, like if someone has a party once again and they have 20 cars come in, where are they going to park? And has the fire chief been consulted about the impact of such a situation? I guess it's a comment more than a question, but also a question. I'm concerned. And then,
Might be a consideration in the condo docs, in terms of limitations of,
Guests at the property or
Well,
or suggested off-street parking.
especially here, I think the comment about here is important,
not parking.
not parking
Yeah,
along
you couldn't.
the access drive.
They have to be marked as fire lane almost.
Or no parking signs.
No parking, fire lane.
all right, to move along, I do agree with board member Jeff Palumbo that there should be future planning for coming out of the property, either at the Diamond property or the Finland property in some way, so that, I mean, the board was thinking about planning to develop the whole inner town area, so I think that should be looked at as an option. If those property owners down the road want to develop their properties, then it could be all connected. That would solve the one-way only in the future and have a loop in and out. So I just think the board should consider that. And then a comment. Although you're approaching this as 108, 106, it appears to be all one project. And my concern with the amount of units going in, and it's all just septic systems. I'm not sure if that's the approach, but I don't think this board comments on that or guides the applicants on that, and it's just a concern, that's all.
Anybody else? Oh, okay.
Do I have to go through all the other ones that I said for 106?
You don't have to. You can
But-
do as you wish.
I know, but is it important for the record? It is, okay. All right, well, here we go. I strongly oppose the waiver for the traffic study. I think it's important to have that traffic study. I think there are a lot of cars going out onto the road. It's a busy street, especially at key hours. I would like to see the granite curbs. I just think that the downtown area looks so beautiful and the work that has been done, and it would look so nice to just have that continue on along that road. I also question the width of the street. I just know how bad it gets in the snow, and that's my main concern. And since Peter has been talking, my big concern at the beginning of this whole thing was public safety. And as he was talking about, people having company and having parties and then limiting access to the houses, I just think that's a public safety issue with, there might be people that can't have their fire put out, And regarding I would not like, I don't think signage is appropriate for the area. I think it's not in keeping with the area. And as far as the hedges go, just a comment, a tip maybe is, at least for our side, we have a very bad deer problem, and deer love arborvitaes. We've just given up on our arborvitaes. I don't know if it's a problem across the street. It may not be because, the deer maybe they don't cross the street, but we have a lot of them. So you might want to be thinking about that as far as, the other side of the street for the hedges. And let's see, I guess that's about it. Yep, I think I got them all. Thank you.
Okay. This will also be continued. Is this being continued also to the December 3rd?
Steve, is there anyone else?
I think that they were done, right? Yeah. And it would be, we should schedule it, we should give them at least a half an hour for it this time, right? Should we do it for 8:45?
What time was the other one at?
8:15.
15. Yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose so.
you gonna make
I
that?
move.
Should we, 15 minutes, just in case it has to
Show.
continue?
Just in
Okay.
case they both get canceled?
Yeah, I mean,
You could do that, yep,
8:30.
yeah.
Okay. Move to continue the public hearing for 108 Main Street Pasture Development Group to December 3rd at 8:30 PM.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Gino, what did it say about the sign?
It says they're allowed in a residential development is allowed a sign up in a mixed-use commercial district.
Mixed use, is that a mixed-use commercial district, or is it only the poor?
Business, mixed-use business or commercial district. I know, the term mixed-use threw me off at first, that's why I kept looking at it, because I was thinking, this is not a mixed-use project, but it's a mixed-use district.
Well, I thought the only place where mixed use was allowed was in Citizens Court. Isn't that the only place where mixed use with business and residential, isn't that the only place in the B1 district?
No.
No? You sure?
Yeah.
So much to get that in anyway.
Yeah, because, I mean, here we go, this is a residential, but business is also allowed in the outside the core.
self-contained unit.
But that was for, what was it for that it was gonna go under? Not all of them, but just
You know,
get the pitch or something?
on the culvert,
What was
gonna go under
Gas, water, cable.
It's the same situation
No,
as
somebody
these.
said some were gonna go below,
Yeah.
some were gonna go
It's gonna be a while.
If we were going to
Be water, gas, those are the biggest
probably
pipes.
give them a heads up, 'cause I think they're
Maybe
behind.
cable and electrical
Cable
between.
December 3rd meeting, just
Max, probably 2 inch conduit.
Zoom, you know,
Oh.
so.
Yeah, we should.
I mean,
How do you
Maybe
feel
even
about that,
widen
Jeff?
the
Should we
road.
just inform him that if there's a problem with his engineer and should withdraw, just like we made these
They
people?
they have a new engineer, it's Rick Goudreau of United Consultants.
okay with that.
The 9 Shire, the one that's coming in, probably the next one, had
Yeah.
the same problem with the engineer that these
Yes.
two did. And you want to, you agree that we should send him a letter saying that he
Did we
should?
talk about that last time?
You guys continued it to tonight.
Oh, we didn't talk about that.
But we should let him know that there's an issue.
Then
Right.
he's gonna need to withdraw.
Yeah, it's just a matter of re-advertising. It's-
We didn't talk about
We can still get him on for the December 3rd meeting.
that? Yeah, definitely. If we hadn't done that, we should.
He should be, if you could draft a letter that would inform him
I'll
that,
contact him.
let him know what happened with these other two.
To make it easy for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Bob McGee.
No.
Updates regarding Shire Park,
We
tree
canceled
spending,
everyone else just for
Mill
you.
River Heights, and Toils End Farm. Curbing, mono versus sloped.
Your favorite subject.
Why is that back on Toils End Farm? We denied it the last time they requested it.
I don't know yet,
Yeah, well, we did.
so we're asking again. Can we start from the beginning, which is on the agenda?
Sure.
That's the way my brain works. But anyways, I've been meaning to come in front of the board a few different times over the last couple of years with regards to Shire Industrial Park. As you know, that they went bankrupt. The bank took over the lots. There's still a bond remaining for the infrastructure of the roadway. And since I've talked to the bank a few years ago, and it was just an informal talk because somebody had to take care of the property. So I attended a little meeting at the Walpole Cooperative Bank with the Peter Chigaris, and agreed with him then. I was in no position to make any decisions or even encourage him in either way, but I did agree to have the DPW sand and plow that road. If you've been down there, you probably know the structures are raised, there's a couple of speed bumps there, and it's deteriorating. It's, the good news, according to the bank, is the lots, 13 out of 14 have been sold. There's one that they're going under agreement with, so I guess that's good news. I guess the original cost, I talked to Tom a little bit today, and I saw his math, that the original cost to complete at the point of lot release, and if I have this a little bit wrong, Tom, please jump in, was approximately $400 and something thousand. Somewhere along the line, the road was further developed, and request for reduction of bond was made, and there's approximately, and I'm just approximately, pretty close, $274,000 or something to remaining being held by the Walpole Bank, Cooperative Bank, to finish the road. So as we get towards the winter time, and I've been, like I said, I apologize that I didn't bring this to your attention earlier because some decisions need to be made. But as we get towards the winter time, it's time to also plow and sand again. And this will be the third season that the taxpayer is kind of, I shouldn't say the taxpayer, the DPW is going through that subdivision and taking care of it through the winters. It's okay, but it really can't continue much longer without some kind of resolution. And what I mean physically is that the structures out there are raised. They're 1.5 to 3 inches above the existing pavement, and they're taking a beating from our plows. You just can't see them under snow cover. And it's wreaking havoc on our plows. I'm having a hard time forcing the guys to go in there because they just can't see. Snow happens at night. There's 4 to 2 feet of snow, and you just don't know where these covers are. You can't remember where they are. And there's 24 of them, I believe, at least 24 that are obstructed. There's probably more covers there. But not only that, during the course of the other parts of the year, heavy trucking is going over these, and it's further deteriorating, the condition of the infrastructure up there. So it's probably a good time to to open up discussions. First of all, if I could, what I'd like to do is lower those structures so we can safely plow that street. It's Shire Drive and a small section, a road that goes to a rotary, and a small section of Sharon Ave. And I'd like to drop those structures flush, at the same time rebuild them to make sure that they're okay, because it's our investment to protect it, and that's going to require probably $200 a piece times 24, so somewhere around $5,000 I'd need to do that. Now, it's one thing to plow and sand and not reimburse the taxpayer at this point, but to find money somewhere to lower those structures, I would think would come from the bond remaining. So I'm not so sure what it was. So what we did to just spark the conversation, get things moving, because what we do is every time we go out and we plow a subdivision, an unaccepted subdivision for the safety of the people that may be in occupancy there, or other places, we submit a bill for our, operation. So we did this time, and we addressed it to, I believe it's Franklin Distribution and Warehouse, or Franklin Warehouse and Distribution Company. And with that, we'll finally get an answer, a return from them if they exist. If they don't, then I don't know who's in charge of this bond. I talked to like I said, I talked to the bank, and I'm just a little bit gray on this. Tom, you and I talked a little bit today, and Tom made some sense out of it to me, but it seems to me that where we interacted from the beginning with the intent to have this street approved, that the planning board may be in charge of that money.
Well, we can pull it. We're not basically in charge of it, but we can take control of it if necessary. Is there enough there to finish the roadway and everything?
Just a quick look, I think that there is.
If I might, Steve, I recall this came up before, similar circumstance, before winter, and you were thinking seriously about doing that work that you're describing. So it came up maybe 2 years ago. And my recollection was at that time it was Walpole Cooperative Bank, I think, was the party that, we would need to coordinate with as far as bonds and things of that nature, any type of bond release. So in terms of this entity that you mentioned, this isn't my area of expertise, I'll admit, but maybe someone could explain to me, why it was Walpole Cooperative Bank at one point, now it's Franklin something or other.
Well, it was from the beginning Franklin Warehouse and Industries, or whatever they're called. So I guess that they posted a bond, they built some of the road, came in for a bond reduction, through a vote, you approved the bond reduction. Tom probably did the math on it, and it still looks good. So, how do I say this? I think what I've heard from Paul Chigaris was that he just needs the authority from this board to do anything with that money. And I think before we agreed to accept that money to finish that road up to an acceptance standard so it can be accepted by the town, I think we need to meet on that and discuss, have a formal discussion on it, get our legal advisors involved, talk to the bank's legal advisors, or get that formal bankruptcy document, if it exists at all, if they went bankrupt. I mean, I don't know until I see it. So that's where we are right now.
And just to be clear, the reason why you have the exposed profile is because it's lacking the top course of asphalt. Is that the case?
It is. It was at the time the developers, he didn't want to pay for it twice. A lot of times when you see a subdivision take a few years to, fully develop, what they'll do is they'll take this, they'll put a binder course down, a wear course down, lay the structures flush so they're operational, but then you got to pay again to have them raised. So if you think it's going to sell quick and you're a pretty sharp developer, you can probably leave them raised, pat a little asphalt around it, and hope that, within a year or so, all you got to do is just jack that asphalt away, and it's ready to go. So I hope that answers your question, but right now, they need to be dropped, because, at least for this winter, we're not going to put a top course on.
Yeah. But the cost to complete includes the cost of the top course of asphalt.
It does. We gotta straighten out the curbing that's up there, we get to look at the infrastructure again, there's other things, and right to the trees, but,
Well, would it be better to do that two-step process of lowering them, then raising them, and then putting the top course down, or would it be easier just to put the top course down and see if that whatever problem is with the curbing is fixed? Because if we pull the bond, we may as well do it all, right?
well, $5,000 isn't a lot of money, and I would recommend that there's no time in the year left to be topping that anyways. I'd need to get a curb crew out there, really straighten this thing out. There's a few other things that I probably just can't think of right now. I know the gas company wants to go up through the sidewalk and supply gas. I would think that you'd be all for that. It's good for business. So they're going to go through the sidewalk and so forth. There's a few things that got to go on there before you can just top it. And we're running out of time. We just don't have the season for a good top coat.
And do you really want to do a top coat before, there's still build-out going on up there, too.
But you might want to do that. That's
haven't
a
seen
great
it
conversation.
to the
You might
level
want to
you
do
do.
it, because I don't think it could go another 5 years, because the top coat does preserve the base coat, and then that goes down to the sub-base, and then that, and so on.
Then we'd have to get into a similar situation like we did with O'Brien and Meeks on Annalore, that if they're going on to sites, they're going to have to, protect the existing,
Right.
curb cuts when they bring their heavy equipment in,
There would be. That's why it's worthy of a meeting. Really talk this thing out to figure out, when do we, if that development of that, I don't know what the markets are for that kind of zoning,
Right. I've seen a couple of their sites, they're out like 125,000 at this point, and things like that. And so, the other thing is, there were pre-existing customers prior to, if it was a bankruptcy, I don't remember if it was. I know that Walpole foreclosed on it. But, the situation where it came back, and again, I mentioned Annalore Circle, where they come back and say, wait a second, before you do anything else, I was entitled to 2 sidewalks, I was entitled to this, that.
Right.
So before any major changes go on in the subdivision itself, I don't think it would be wise not to think it all out in a working session.
Right. And maybe, because I was talking to Jack Hathaway today, and he made good sense, so that we don't get caught into that expectation that maybe that 275 really requires 375 after you plant the trees and you get it all done, that the people that are buying that property don't have an expectation and a legal right to come back to the town. So we want to straighten that out now, right now.
The good thing is, there was a third party that bought Annalore, and that's the reason why that came back to bite them. The only other player here was Walpole took it back.
Right.
So you'd have to get the sign-offs with them.
Yeah. There's another thing going on there. I don't know where it plays into this, but there's a septic system up there. There's a overgrown leaching field that's common to all the businesses up there, and there's a pump station. And I believe that the thought was that there was an association that's going to have the maintenance and long-term maintenance of that. I do know that the plumbing for all that is outside the right-of-way. There's easements for that, but it's on the private properties. So I didn't know that until just the other day, but, because I just didn't open the drawings because I had other things going on, but, so I guess that's a good thing, but you're right, we need to talk about it, and we need to get legal counsel involved, go through the process.
The good thing is, given the usage that does exist up there, minimal flow going to that septic system.
Right.
Right, so it's not a whole lot of use, so.
But it's not being maintained at all?
I mean,
I
what's
don't even know.
realistically,
Yeah,
maintaining what?
Well,
maybe
it's
the
a
pump system, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming each site has their own septic tank, right?
They do,
Yeah.
they probably having the tanks pumped right now and not using that. I
Each
don't know,
site
it's online.
pumps into it's one of those common feeder systems, so
Right. Yeah.
each site maintains its own pump.
Oh, so there's no main pump
No, well,
station?
not a pump in the sense it brings the wastewater to the site, but it has to be pressure dosed If it's over 2,000
Right.
gallons.
And this
that's
thing's
well
a,
over
what, the
2,000.
99?
Yeah, something like that.
They
So-
maxed it out, if I remember, right.
So there is a central pump for the pressure dosing, which certainly, I think there have been reports filed with the Board of Health, but I'll check on that.
So procedurally, to put Bob in a position where he could do the work, and this is because of my lack of experience in this area, what needs to be, happen here? Something needs to be drafted, which has the planning board, signatures, what have you. I don't know if it's a
Well,
formal
Gino
vote
may
of the
know
chairman.
specifically what we have to do. Do you?
If you pull the bond, you own it.
Yeah,
That's the
Well, you
decision
don't have to
maker.
pull the whole bond.
No,
I mean,
my suggestion would be, and I share Bob's concern about the urgency of this thing. I don't recall exactly how it got in this situation because we always require developers to lower the castings for the winter. Somehow, maybe it was a story, it was urgent at the time or something, but they were left up. And those speed bumps that you see up there, they're not actually speed bumps. They're little devices to direct the water into the high catch basins, but then in winter conditions, you get ponding around the waterway. It's just a terrible situation. So I think it is urgent. I think it should be done now as opposed to waiting until next year to top it. My suggestion is to come up with a cost for doing that, and you might as well come up with a bill for the snow plowing that you did for the last couple of years in this winter, and that's probably the amount that should be requested from the surety that's on
Well,
deposit.
is snow plowing a legitimate surety item, though? I mean, that could be a lien against the property, like a taxes, but I don't know if you can pull bond money.
This came up before, I
It's
think.
not
and it was-
there's a quote-unquote maintenance item
Okay,
that's carried as a percent of the overall cost.
in a cost to complete?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But that, if we start pulling amounts like that out without getting something back, because the owners, the bank foreclosed, they're the ones that should be paying for these things. Why don't we submit a bill to the bank to get them to pay for it? Isn't that, is
That's what I
that,
was thinking.
Well,
Yeah.
the only issue is, what they own has no value. I mean, they have a legal obligation to pay out on the surety that they've agreed to post.
Well, actually, they're the
But all-
major lot holder in that site. They own the lots.
I thought, well, Bob indicated all the lots had been sold.
Oh, have they?
No, some of them were sold.
Because they still
All
list
but
them a
one, and
couple.
the last one's under agreement.
Oh, okay, that's
but
what
we
we
don't own
knew
the
then, I didn't
road.
realize that.
Don't they still own the road until it's turned over to us? They still own it.
They
And the
do-
owners own the septic system and the,
They own everything.
The bank owns the road, but if the cost of fixing it goes above the amount on deposit, they have no skin in the game. There's no incentive for them.
Right, that's why I'm saying, why
Other
should we
than
use up the
just a
money that
sense of
we've got in there
integrity, you know?
and send them a bill?
I think sending the bill is entirely appropriate. Hopefully, they pay it as a responsible corporation, but
So we're back to Walpole Cooperative Bank, which is where we were 2 years ago.
yes.
This other entity did not enter the equation 2 years ago.
I mean, I think there's a lot of moving parts to this, and, for the short term, getting the $5,000 to address the plowing, and then work out all the other things, because you're not gonna get a working plan on what to do in total, not before the snow flies and before the asphalt plants close down. So,
Worst comes to worst, and my board would agree, we could probably waive any snow fees. That's not the end of the world. But it's one thing to do a favor. Poor choice of words. We're all in this together. It's the town of Norfolk. Just ask for a little help so we don't go through the windshield and further ruin the infrastructure. So, and I don't think it's fair for the taxpayers that have to come up with that. So whatever we come up with, according to the bank, some authorization from this board would give me those funds.
how much are you talking about on the outstanding snow?
Probably $11,000 on an average winter, based on 18 sanding and 12 plowing. We've trended since 2003, so I have that, I could.
I just
I have
wanted a
it.
ballpark,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, because we could chew through what we're holding in
Yeah.
surety, and then when we have to go finish the roadway, we won't have enough.
I would agree with that.
Probably
why I
pretty
think it
close
might be-
right now.
And it's not getting any cheaper to finish these streets, oil byproducts and so forth.
That's why I think we should throw the bill to them as quickly as we can. Do you guys think that you could draft something? Could you get a number for what it would cost to lower those and get it to Gino and Tom? Between the two of them, they should be able to put something together for us to be able to send. Do you agree with that, Tom?
I thought you said it was like
Jeff.
$5,000.
Oh, but I mean, if you want to...
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree. Mr. Chairman, I agree.
I'm looking at him, and I'm talking to you.
Gino, right.
How do you feel, guys?
I was wondering how you were answering. I didn't realize you were looking at
Well,
me.
how are you going to help Bob in the meanwhile? And that's going to take some time to get a letter together, get response from a bank. Maybe they'll pay,
True.
maybe they won't pay. Do we still want to authorize him going ahead and doing work with some other funds
Well,
while we try and
do we
back charge
have
him?
any funds that are engineering funds or something like that that we could go into short-term, if we can get the money back?
Well, Bob, I mean, realistically, how much time do you have? I know it's getting late here, but, you know, the asphalt plants, we used to look at, you know, Thanksgiving, right? You know, we used to use that as a rule of thumb,
Yeah,
that they would
that's-
close. I don't know, and you're gonna have to do some
They're
asphalt work
they're a lot
around
more
it.
sophisticated now. They'll open up in February if the weather's good.
Yeah.
They usually cite 2 days or a Tuesday every week or something like that.
I mean,
That doesn't make
For-
a big difference.
first prize, to me, would be to at least present it and give them an opportunity to do something. My concern is, and I'm not sure exactly what the mechanism is for them to find out, but if we go ahead and do it, now perhaps there's that much less incentive for them to act on it because it's already done, you know?
Well, yeah, except
I understand.
we're saying it's
I'm
gotta
just-
be done,
I'm just saying, you know, I don't know how long it would take to get something pulled together, if that, you know, within a week, we could have something presented and at least give them a week or some period of time to act on it. If they don't, we could go to Plan B, and at least we can say, listen, you know, we presented the information, we had no choice to move ahead, just in terms of how it ideally would be done, the sequence of events.
You've got a good month before you really, if I had a month, you know, it's only going to take a couple of days to drop these structures, level them out, and
Then we go to Plan B, if.
Well, I
we
just
can't
want to
get
make sure there is a Plan B. Do we have enough funds to be able to cover what he's talking about? It would probably stretch us pretty thin,
How much money are we talking?
$5,000.
Possibly. Have to check.
Yeah.
But the
It
other,
is about 5,000, you're saying, right, yeah. What was that?
the other issue you might want to check out first is if that's reimbursable, or if funds that come from, if money's spent now and then money comes from the bank, it may have to just go into the general fund.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
You know, who owns this road today?
The bank.
No,
Oh.
but, I mean, the bank by default, but until it's accepted, who, is this like a commercial ownership association?
When the subdivision's approved, the road is identified as a separate parcel, with, the ownership is retained by the developer. So,
Right.
when they foreclose, they got the road, that parcel as well as the lot. So Walpole Cooperative should be the owner of the
Therefore,
road.
Walpole Cooperative is,
Should be responsible for
the
this
road.
maintenance, yeah,
regardless of the amount of the bond.
right.
But
Well, let's start with Plan
We're
A.
in a difficult
Yeah.
situation if they elect not to stand up to their responsibilities because there's no lots or anything.
I understand, but didn't they also step up and help straighten out the NLMS as well? They kicked in some extra money and things like
Yeah,
that.
no, I
Well,
think they're.
if they refuse to pay the bill, would we still have the option? And I agree, I don't think pulling the bond is the right thing to do because we're really losing our security for finishing the road. But that could be a Plan B so that You
That
know,
would be
again.
Plan C.
Plan C. Really, but it could still be a plan, or
Yeah.
couldn't it be? Could you do the work and then still pull the bond after the work is done? Does it hurt you to do it in that sequence?
No, it's an obligation to the town, I think.
So I think, if we find that we kick in the money temporarily because they won't pay the bill and it really depletes us, we still could choose. I mean, for $5,000 on a $270,000 bond, if it's going to deplete us that much, I say we go for it as Plan C. So I think we do have a Plan A, bill the bank. Plan B, they don't follow through, we pull some kind of reserves out to pay for it. Plan C, we try and recoup it through the bond.
Sounds reasonable. So we'll start with Plan A. Could you guys see? And we really should put it by town council before we do anything. So you guys can draft
Well, if the-
something, we'll put it by town council and send it to the bank.
Betsy, didn't we get a specific directive from town council as to calling a surety maybe a couple of years ago? It's pretty detailed. Trying to think of the project.
But at the moment, we're not planning on calling the surety. We're
No.
planning on having them pay the bill.
No, I understand, but
It might have been this one, Tom. It was about the time frame.
maybe.
Bob was thinking about doing this work.
Well, first is a request, and then we'll...
That's what I was wondering too, or the crossings, or
You-
just as a temporary.
Yeah, I guess if you authorize it, I mean, we have to spell that out, I think, but that's above my head, and that's this board.
Just a thought.
That would be tough for us to replace with other funds. Then it would just be gone.
Then what happens in the spring when you want to do the rest of the crosswalks?
Well, the question would be if the bank agrees to pay, but they can't do it in a timely manner, and it's going to eventually be reimbursed to general fund, shouldn't funds come from the general fund to therefore then be reimbursed?
Well, yeah, we should find out what's going to happen before.
They can only come out of the general fund if they're appropriated at town meeting, or if it's an emergency, which this could qualify as, then advisory can authorize that.
Right.
We go that route.
Yeah.
Go for a transfer.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
How about tree spending?
Well, we did a little paving this year, and I thought this would be a neat idea. I asked Betsy and checked with Julie. We have like $4,050 in an account for replacement trees. And where we paved from the railroad tracks down to Boardman Street this year, on the right-hand side, we recreated the sidewalk situation on the loom borders. And I just thought, and whatever your opinion is too, it'd be a pretty nice place to put it'd fit nicely about 12 trees, 10 to 13 trees, so I'm thinking 12. And,
Sounds like a great place to put money into trees.
yeah, it's kind of barren on that side. There's a few really mature trees behind the sidewalk. But I thought to compliment the town, I don't know if you can remember the town as it flowers in the spring, and you had that going down Rockwood Road for a while, it kind of like, pretty cool.
Yeah, but I prefer higher story trees myself as opposed to the
Ornamental trees?
Yeah, the ornamental trees. They don't look quite as nice when they're mature.
Yep.
As the large trees are. I mean, that's just my opinion.
But I
Does
think
anyone?
that road
And the plows
could
wipe 'em out,
definitely-
too.
That road could definitely handle a more stately tree.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like a development,
Right.
cul-de-sac road. It's a,
I brought that up, and I was thinking of doing it this year, but I'm thinking the salt's probably going to kill them, and it wouldn't be worth doing it till the spring anyways, but at least think about it now.
So how much is it a tree? A couple of $100?
I'm thinking, if it were a couple $100, times 13, so you'd have, what?
$600.
Yeah.
that sounds good, Bob.
Yep.
Yep.
Mill River Heights. Oh, they want Cape Cod berm also, huh?
Monoberm.
Well, same thing.
Monoberm.
No, that's the one on the road.
Well, you know what's going on, and this will be the last time I'm on my knees for this, but
I don't believe that.
if you remember, we took, is it Shady? You go by it every day, every morning.
Shady Way.
Well, Shady Way's behind me.
Saddle Ridge.
Oh, Saddle Ridge, yeah.
So we said that we'd try it out with Saddle Ridge, and I am sitting back, even that night wondering, trying it out isn't like we're going to get the answer tomorrow. In the meantime, after we try it out, it's probably not going to get topped for another year or two. We try it out, and take a look at it after 6 winters, we're already going to have another 12 subdivisions underway. So that whole thought process isn't going on. I'm a big mono berm fan, as you know, but, and again, this is the last time I'll try, but I said as they are laying out the binder, they need to know if they're going to go with a slope granite curbing or if they're going to go with a mono, because there's a different preparation for each. It's, to me, a win-win for us on a mono berm as far as maintenance go and replacement and aesthetics, because of all the reasons I gave you before, whether you agree or don't, my opinion, your opinion, it doesn't matter. But it does last longer. I'm convinced of that. And it's a little cheaper for the developer, which that's not driving my decision here, but they're ecstatic about doing that, obviously. So they're about ready to throw a little bit more binder, another 1,000 feet up at Fox Run to the Rentham line. And DiMartino is looking for whether he should put his slope granite in now or wait until he tops it and put in the, so they need an answer. And again, last time I'll be asking for it. I get the message loud and clear if you don't want it, but.
Can you refresh us on the advantage in your mind, and perhaps in practical terms based on what you see? We may have to do a field trip or something. We talked about that at some point. We'd go and review some of this stuff. But can you refresh us on the advantage as far as the monolithic versus the vertical granite or slope granite, whatever the case might be?
To say that, and it's not my opinion because I'm out there and this is what I do for a living, talk to just so many people. And if you talk to developers and maybe even some design architects, they'll tell you that the slope granite is garbage, in their words. Now, it might look nice to you if it doesn't go through the abuse that we put it through and the grass doesn't grow out of the gutter line and so forth, but when you put in the slope granite curb, it's like this tall, it leans back, you don't get enough support through concrete gutter lock like you would the granite curb, because I'm a big fan of vertical granite, put it all over the place. I mean, we're a country town anyway, but in the commercial areas in the downtown, I love it. But the slope granite curbing is, it's this thin, it's this tall, and they're 4 feet sections, and to make a radius, you got to cut them, and you got to joint each one of them. The joints fall apart. Grass does grow out of it. There's no doubt about it. I touch it with a plow, it's gone. We really try real hard to delineate the curb line when we plow, because we start at 2 inches, and then when you plow with 2 inches, you know where the windrow is. But that gets lost too, and that's when we start hitting the curbs and stuff like that. Now, on the other hand, when you put a mono berm in, and if I sound like a broken record for some that just don't understand this, there's 2 Cape Cod berms you can put in. You can put down the binder, and they have this little crew go around with a jitterbug, and they throw a asphalt mix, and they follow a line, and they put this smooth berm that goes up along and then you come in with a top mix, and you top the road, and it butts up against there. But a cold joint is when you do something one day, and you do another application the other day, it separates, water gets in there, and that's easily removed from the pavement because our plows right now are they just rip them out of the ground. And so when you put a mono berm in, as opposed to that application, you put a mono berm in, you've got a big paver using 3/4 inch stone, which is a state top. It gets dropped in this hopper, in this big turning auger, pushes it way out from here to the hallway. And by the time that gets pushed out there, it comes with great compaction. It's also made out of the same material that the tough street is made out of, and not that little sand mixed with the jitterbug. And it's all seamless. So it doesn't crack at that gutter line. And my plows will ride up over it, and on top of it all, we take the corner of the plow and we chop a little bit off, so it takes the shape of that. And it'll be there for a while. And it's just far superior as far as maintenance go and long-term durability. And, it's just a matter of taste whether you like the slope granite curbing. Brand new, it looks really nice, I guess, but that's where we are with it. And as far as I'm concerned, and my guys are concerned, and it creates a whole different program for us in the wintertime. After the winter's over, we go and we survey the entire town, and we find out where all this plow damage is. And unlike, in one of our programs is to go out and do curb repair. It's either berm repair, because we used to put that little jitterbug application in, or it's we got to go out and straighten out the granite curbing. And then some of the granite curbing, the slope granite curbing only, some of that slope granite curbing that isn't destroyed or doesn't have to be fixed, somewhere in the middle of the summer, you're going to see out, unless you have a landscaper that's conscious enough to come off the lawn and go to the gutter line, weed whack it or pesticide it and stuff like that, you're going to have grass growing out of it and it becomes unsightly, or we have to go out and do some of that application, and we're not staffed to do that.
So when you took this concept to Norfolk, Bob, and I, I've seen some good results.
Sure.
But I haven't looked as closely as I probably should. So, but that aside, you've got some experience with this in some other towns, I assume?
Right. Monoberm is...
Can you give us some perspective in terms of maybe some other towns that have used it for a while, and maybe we need to take a look at some other towns and what, the history?
I would say it's more modern than 10 years ago, if they've done it.
Yep.
Because what it is, it's an application on the actual paver itself. So they made shoes on the ends of the pavers and stuff like that, and it's more difficult to do radiuses, so they got to take their time and they got to do it, because the machine's a track machine, it turns like this, the auger goes in, there's a couple of things that go on when you lay it down and so forth. But it's really not that old. It's 10 years ago, it probably would have been like stock new, So, if I would tell you to go to other towns and stuff, I can't think of where, unless I went and, I did it everywhere in North Attleboro.
Well, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah, it's, I haven't been over there, so whatever you'd find, I'm pretty sure it's in good shape, but, I've done it here for, 5 years ago, too. So we have streets that are 5 years old that you can look at right now around here, too. And again, if you want, I'll forward you a list with the age of the application. Or just believe me, it works.
One of them is Union Street, I know that.
Union Street's got a couple of gouges in it, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a significant number of gouges in that berm.
Well, you told me about that, and I looked at it, and it's pretty not significant.
Well...
But, if this much went down, this much is damaged, so... I hear you, it's just a matter of, make a decision and I'll live with it.
Every day.
I'm going to fix that, and it's also easy to repair, because all I got to do is, I don't have to take out sections of it and reform it and stuff like that. I get a fine mix, I emulsion in it, and I can put it in and trowel it in, and that discolor will blend in 2 years. You would know the difference.
I can see Bob's point about our idea of a pilot maybe not working so well in reality, because it would be a number of years before we're really going to have some true feedback on the pilot and how that can inform him moving forward. I can't say I'm terribly opposed to the idea of the berm. I have seen places it's been done in town. What it works nicely on is if you are passing a car and your tires hit it, you're not blowing out a tire. So I can certainly see from the plowing aspect. What I feel strongly about, though, is if we're in midstream of a development and we've already got like the sloped granite curbing in part of it, I'd hate to switch over to the berming, to finish it out. I'm fine if we already approved it in the pilot and maybe even consider it in other future developments, but I wouldn't want to, like in Fox Run, switch halfway through. I think that would kind of look goofy.
Well, they had already asked if we
Yeah.
could switch before, and we had already denied them.
Right, so my point is they've already put some sloped in, and I'd hate to go from sloped to berm.
The town of Rentham side.
Well, we don't have any say over that, do we?
Yeah, well, yeah, but if you drive through there, if you want to see what a long stretch of this monoberm looks like, drive through the Rentham side of Fox
Well,
Run.
let's see it, it's on,
No, that's,
115, right? 115 has the monolithic berm when you did that.
115 has a different application. It's real commercial, it's highway. It's an actual $500,000 machine that puts down a berm, and it's ugly as sin. But you know, it all blends after a while, but that's a different one. It really is, because I remember going back and forth with Lynch, who was the contractor on that. But there's no slant granite curbing in Fox Run at all. It's only on the, I think, did they have it on the Rentham side even? I can't remember. Or is it mono over there? Or is it berm?
Well, I've only gone over some sections. I haven't driven through
They have some
the entire
temporary
side.
berm there that they put up just for erosion control, just to hold the lawn back and get a seed rooted.
So you're talking about both Mill River Heights and Toils End Farm.
And
But-
Fox Run.
Well,
Well, that's the same.
that is Toils.
They changed
Oh.
names.
Yeah.
I thought
So-
Trails End was.
Toils End Road.
I mean, if you think that Mill River Heights will be
They changed their name.
paved before, do you think that'll be done before Saddle Ridge?
They're running neck and neck.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. Saddle Ridge got a couple of houses going on now, maybe a third one, I think, and then, I think probably Saddle Ridge would go before.
Aren't there 4 houses?
At Saddle Ridge?
Yeah.
Right, something
Yeah,
like
there's 2, like, being cited right now, so
Yeah,
they're,
they're in total, there's only 4 or 5.
I think there's
there's
only
only
4 or 5, I
handful
think,
down
yeah.
Right.
I think
4
Mill River,
total.
Mill
Is it
River
4
Heights is
total?
like
4 total, so the
9.
4, I don't know if the 4th one's built, but
No,
I know it's been
definitely
sold, and they've got a house, and
No,
it'll be just about,
Right,
it's
I
just
di-
about
I-
ready.
I hadn't seen
Almost
any.
number 2.
I saw one behind the welding shop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Two.
Two behind there.
2 behind the
Yeah,
one.
2.
And then where's the
That's all
other
there
That one
is.
that we
Maybe
saw
they're
over the summer
starting
where
the
they dug the
third.
foundation,
Right.
and then the one
It's
right
right there.
right next to it. They're literally,
They
it
are
seems on
close.
top of each other.
Right.
They really do look close.
Bill.
Also, the Winston Road, the Fern Ridge has been approved for mono.
The Winston
That
Road,
which
the
was-
redevelopment of Winston Road, right?
The subdivision, Winston Road, Spencer Road, and the public Winston Road part.
Yeah, not inside the subdivision, though.
Yeah, that's,
When, did we do, I don't remember ever doing
I don't.
monoberm inside
I don't remember.
that subdivision.
if you open the drawings, you're going to see sloped granite, but,
Well, if it's supposed to be sloped granite, how come it's not sloped granite?
because you can change drawings, and I think that's what Butch did. I think he might have come before you guys and did it, because it wasn't me.
That's on the public part, but in terms
No,
of the
in
subdivision.
the subdivision.
Well, Butch wouldn't.
Why would Butch
No.
be changing
Use
it?
those
No.
drawings.
Well, I didn't give them the authority, and,
Unless they just did it on their own and decided that that's what they were gonna do.
I got to look into that, see if there's
Yeah.
anything in, a change in the order or something.
That would be like Lou.
Yeah, it would be like Lou.
Hmm.
Because we never approved that.
I don't remember.
This ought to be fine.
All right, what else is there?
Of all people were going to be granting that waiver, I don't think it would have been there.
No.
Really don't.
Just another day.
All right, what else is there? Let's say now. Oh, that's it.
So do we have any answers for Bob?
No, we're gonna have to discuss these things.
I mean,
Well,
maybe
this-
we do something similar to what we did recently when we had the earth removal permit, the questions about that. We had a few of us that made ourselves available, go out, look at a few locations.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad idea.
I mean, before we take that action, because we're talking about changing our rules and regulations, basically,
Because
right? I mean, that's what-
we really have to look at something that's been around for a while.
I know.
To see if
I
it
know
actually
that.
holds
I know
up, like,
Yeah, and maybe it depends on circumstances. Maybe, Mill River, which is relatively small subdivision and might have a short road, or is it a short road, is it a long road, is it windy, is it, so it might be circumstantial depending on how we.
It's a 700-foot cul-de-sac.
yeah, it's the long cul-de-sac.
Right, but maybe in a larger development like Toils End, Fox Run, whatever its name is today, you might want to stick with one versus much smaller,
Yeah, we should go out and take a look. We should do a field trip on
Circumstantial.
a Saturday and check some of these places out.
I don't think we're going to carte blanche do away with the requirement, but we
No.
could still
No, it's rules and
potentially
regulations.
consider it on a case-by-case basis. That's my feeling.
All right, we got to move on. It's 10 o'clock, our next meeting, I think it's 8:45, the associate
Thanks,
member.
Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.
So Andrea emailed me today. She said that it has suddenly occurred to her that it's gone on for a really long time. It's gone on for 6 months. We're 6 months into this year. So she said she was withdrawing because she felt as though it's gone on long enough, and Greg's been putting in great attendance this year.
Okay.
So, since we don't have to have any interviews, I will mention that in the prior 2 years, the attendance has been pretty bad. 1 year was 5 meetings out of 21.
The only time I was significantly gone that I recall was this past spring.
I looked on the meeting minutes because I knew that you had been out a lot, and I looked, and you were there for 5 out of 21 meetings in a year. So I want to make sure that I bring up the whole thing about attendance, because you're here for a reason, and that's it. You're needed for a vote or something.
I understand completely, and I make as many
He's
meetings
atoned
as I'm
for his past
able to do.
sins.
I mean,
He's been great in the past year.
So does someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to appoint Craig Merlis as the associate member of the planning board. Is this a dual appointment with the Board of Selectmen, correct?
Yes, it is. This will just be our vote, yeah. Do we have a second?
Go ahead.
Second?
Okay. Does this have to be an individual vote, or is this a,
I think so.
The roll call?
yeah?
Well, isn't it a joint appointment, or is it just your?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've gone through this before when we had a joint appointment.
I
And
think we have to do it individually, right? Because it's a joint appointment.
I mean, it can't hurt to go,
Yeah.
just in case.
Jeff Palumbo, aye.
Stephen McLean, aye.
Peter Chipman, aye.
Michelle Mayhew, aye.
Okay.
And-
I guess it's approved.
Thank
Right.
you.
You are officially associate member.
Now, because it's a joint appointment, but
Subject
There's only
to.
but there's a
only three,
majority.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
It's already
it
a
becomes a kind of a
majority, yeah.
moot point.
But they are more than welcome to hold their vote also. If they want to, Betsy, you can let them know that we voted. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're only an hour behind. Ron Rue, regarding Holbrook Street property. So this is a pre-submission meeting?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, make sure you get a
Mind getting a
microphone
microphone?
here.
Just state your name.
Make sure it's on, guys.
Only Donna knows.
Only Donna knows. This isn't for the
Donna,
room,
right?
this is for,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Ron Root. I'm a developer and builder. I also work as a consultant for a lot of landowners who are looking for information about their land and what it might be worth and what the various options might be as far as developing their land. And Leo Braun and his family, I guess there's half a dozen of them in the family, we all met one day and to talk about what his property might be, might be worth in terms of being able to develop. And the big concern they had was national heritage and the fact that, like a lot of the properties up in that area, I guess there was, there's some concern about what they can and can't do. So what they thought they had for a property ends up being, something that's possibly significantly less.
I'm kind of lost. Do we know where we're talking about?
Location, maybe you could.
Yeah, I have.
it says Holbrook Street. So
Yeah, but I'm just.
What does that mean?
Holbrook, I'm just not sure where it is on there.
This is something I did pretty quickly, so I get a chance to make up the woods and everything. 'cause they-
Dean Turner.
Oh, you had a Turner Street.
Yeah, well, this is Turner and Millis. turns into Norfolk, into Holbrook in Norfolk. And this is their land here. It goes here, back across here, and this lot right here. There are homes on these 3 lots.
Can you show, point out where the ice rink is?
It's over here,
Okay,
down Dean Street,
okay.
right over here.
Where's the village at River's Edge?
That I don't know.
That's way down at the end of Holbrook
Okay,
Street.
so we're just further down that same.
So is this the section that has the bridge on it at the end
It's
of?
right here.
Yeah,
That's in-
I'm familiar with that.
Okay, all right, and the river runs along
The
here.
river's right here. And it comes
Okay,
along
now we
here.
know where I am. Good,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And that new bridge they just did, they did a beautiful job
Yeah, they
on
did.
that. It's right here.
Yeah, it is nice, yeah.
Rink is here. There's a big condominium complex.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what we're talking
Pin
about,
Oaks.
yep.
Yeah.
It'd be First Pin Oaks
Yeah.
and Village, right. Okay, I know where you are.
I think I can pull it up on a
Pull up a little Google Earth.
That's a nice good toy.
I do. I learned something new today.
So wasn't this a site that was offered before, or it was over,
Yeah, they had.
it reaches into both towns?
It does. This is the Millis Norfolk town line.
Okay.
So it's a 25-acre parcel. They got about 17 and a half acres here, and they got about 7 and a half
Right.
acres here. They put this property, oh, that's great. They put the property on the market some time back. Of course, nothing happened. They've had 2 major price adjustments in it.
How did it get cleared?
No. This is, oh yeah, that is it.
Yeah, it looks like that shape. Yeah.
Oh, that's Hayde. It's in.
That's Pin Oaks right next to it.
Oh,
yeah.
that's a hayfield.
That's a Hayde.
Oh, that's a hayfield.
Yeah. Yeah,
Looked like it was just cleared.
That's the open lot, this is their land here.
2
All
acres
all
and
that
more, you can
land is part of
get a
it, all the
farm.
way back to the top of the hill up.
Oh, you're getting daunted. Pick up your mic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, you can see the outline of the property there.
It's for the cable.
Oh, okay,
Being
sorry, but,
continued.
yeah.
And that's dry land? I know at some point in
Yeah,
there it gets
there's what,
kind
yeah,
of
I'll show
swampy,
you,
but-
I'll show you another plan.
And doesn't this climb way up in the back? The
Yes, it
grade?
does,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And you'll see it here. I have plans and talking in the mic too, so. But this is a wetland right here. And the property runs here, back to here, and back to here. That's the extent of the wetland, right
It's
here.
up along the road.
This is the hill, you can see the grades. This is one huge eska back here. It's probably just one big gravel deposit.
Okay.
Okay, so on the Millis side is where it's wet, more so than on the Norfolk side.
This is
That's-
Millis,
Yeah.
and Millis actually is fine.
Well, that
here.
part you were just.
Right, but this piece here, most of the wetlands is
Is in
Millis,
Millis,
you're right,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so they had an engineer do this recently, because like I said, they got to a point where they're saying, does anybody know what this land's worth? Because they're doing estate planning right now, and they're at an age where they need to deal with this, they need to deal with it like right now. And they're looking for a more informed decision about what, what their land, what the possibilities are for their particular piece. And it's really not that difficult until I ran into the C4 zone, and that's why I had a bunch of questions. So, this is a plan they had one of the local engineering firms do, where typically you would just put a loop road in. They didn't extend into any other areas because the entire site, if you follow the National Heritage line, you're going to find the entire site is under National Heritage. And when you're under National Heritage, you really got to limit the amount of development that you're going to do. These folks did just that. They got a road in here, and they have plots for the houses with the bulk of the land devoted to National Heritage.
So this is just a purely conceptual
It's a
subdivision?
conceptual plan, right.
Okay.
That they did for them. And they've asked me to look at that and see what other possibilities might exist. Yep, yep.
Can you see it, guys?
And if, again, that's a very, it's a loop road, comes in one side, comes out the other side, and they've got 10 lots on there. 2 of them are in Millis, 8 of them are in Norfolk. And because of National Heritage, they didn't attempt to do anything beyond that because they really limit them to a relatively small percentage of the site that they look to develop.
I'm trying to figure out all the lots. Is this a lot here?
That's there's a house on that lot right now.
Oh, so this is not part of the...
No, this, and this is not part of it. This is an access. And then
So
this
there's
is-
1, 2,
So wait a second,
three,
there's an
4,
access road in
5,
between
6.
these houses?
This is the road.
Yeah, this one will work better.
Okay. You can see it in the hay. The hay is where the access point is, right here.
It's the one with no lot, this is what doesn't have the suggested subdivision.
Okay.
Sorry about that back there.
So that's the access point.
This is the access point here, and these are the 3 lots in the frontage. So this, and from here to here, is their frontage, their remaining frontage right now.
So R3 is the...
That's where the
yellow
hayfield,
between the
yeah,
houses,
yep.
Okay, and so that house...
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, was the zoning, Steve, you probably remember, was the zoning set up that way where it would allow the residential off? the
I don't remember
Overbrook
exactly
and
where
then
the zoning went, but
C4?
this is C4 zoning.
Sorry.
I don't remember it going to the Millis line. The C4 zoning was established a long, long time ago, back when this was a gravel pit. That's when this was established, C4. So this has nothing to do with anything that anyone, any contemporary board members would have had anything to do with. But there are some restrictions in a C4 zone, and it's one of them is residential, isn't it? If it's unless it's a planned
Age restricted, right. It's only
It's the same zoning as in
Right.
Oaks and...
Yes,
Village.
exactly the same.
Right.
So it has to be age restricted.
The C4, that's the way the zoning's written, yeah.
But, and also, in the C4, and I actually went to, I came to Town Hall this week for the first time here in Norfolk, but, and got some good help from the staff that was there. They answered a lot of questions. But Betsy was the one that suggested maybe I should come see you folks tonight. I had laid out a scenario with some things I've been involved with where we've had some good luck because there's a real good market for it, and it's a product that's selling, and it's selling very, very well. And it's basically condominiumized single family. So I'm sitting in the room tonight, and what do I see? Condominiumized single family. And I just got a major rezoning in a town not too far from here for exactly that type of thing. And this type of thing works well here, but I wasn't entirely sure if C4 allows for that, because it has a smaller lot, but it's a lot. You know, it's an 8,000 square foot lot that is in the zoning, I believe, for C4.
It allows for it, but as long as it's age restricted.
But it's a lot, though, and not, does it allow for condominium as well?
Yes.
Okay. So as long as it's age restricted. So can I just lay something out, and I know I just did this quickly, but I laid something out, I just want to get your reaction to it to see if you thought this works in a C4. And this is where you would basically have a road and divided, and these are small homes. I took a picture of one here. This one happens to be in Sippawisset in West Falmouth. And it's a cottagey style home. They're 2,000. If anyone that's driven down 28A has seen these, there's 12 units there on 2 acres, and they sold out like that. And that type of product on something like this, with a high density where most of the site remains the way it is, which is what National Heritage is going to want, is something that would work.
Well, what would happen with all this?
Well, first, I wrote something up. Run out of copies.
Thank you.
The first few paragraphs are just in the way of background, and I just mentioned it. It basically gives you the background as to who owns the land, how big it is, and what the major issue is, which is priority habitat. classification, which limits the amount of development that can go on here. So it needs to be a clustered type of development if you're going to get the value out of the land, the value that was there before it got encumbered with a priority habitat classification.
Now, have you offered
That's why
this to
I
the
asked
towns?
what was being done
Yeah.
over there, because
Yes, they went to the CDs,
I mean,
the
not to
CPC.
CPC, but to the
Oh,
selectmen.
no, they haven't done the 61A.
Right.
You need a purchase and sale first before
Okay.
you can do the 61A.
Right, so,
Yeah. Again, I'm doing
so
this.
you're trying to
I'm doing
create a
this-
real
I'm doing this
PNS
as a-
situation
Yeah.
by development.
It was the broker on this property. They're thinking of relisting it. It was the broker that, I've been involved with him on other properties, so he brought me in to take a look at it to see what the value might be, because he was looking to see, what they might list this property for, and maybe be able to affect the sale here. Once we do that, then we got to go 61A, so it has to be offered to the town. They did approach the town, the CPC, and they opted not to take it. The biggest problem they had was use. The best use here was beautiful athletic fields, but, this road's pretty small, and it would be behind 3 houses right now. So that was the best use they came up with, and it had some limitations. But it will go back, when they do get this land under agreement, it's going to have to go through that 61A process. Either that, or they're going to have to take it out of 61A first. I don't see them doing that, because they've had this on the market twice now. It hasn't sold, so.
A lot of back taxes. Yeah.
So I think they're going to wait to get under agreement and then see what happens. And if the town wants to pick it up at that point, they can.
Right, okay.
This is the type of project, again, I think there's a market for it. And when I read it, the thing I wasn't sure about is whether you could condominiumize a single family. And then when I looked here, I said to myself, I think you can. But nobody was doing single family, they were doing condos. And I didn't see anything that precluded you from doing single family. It didn't single it out.
The form of
and say,
ownership
yeah.
is never addressed in the zoning code. Condominium is a form of ownership,
Mm-hmm.
so that's never addressed under zoning. That's
Gino, what's the size lot that you can do in the C4? How small?
8,000,
Under a PMLD?
yes.
don't forget to bring
For
up
the
the
condo,
secondary
there is no
access
lot.
point.
That's where it becomes confusing. The condominium, there's no lot. It's a footprint of the foundation. And the zoning says 8,000 square feet. That's where I was unsure.
Well, I mean, the Village of River's Edge is a 51-acre lot,
Yeah.
right? So it's just a straight condo association under the C4.
Yeah, because this here, the Norfolk piece of this is 17 and a half acres, and this sketch has 20 houses on it. So it's a little over 1 an acre. Not that 20 is the right number, I'm just laying out 20 units.
Is there a density requirement?
That's what I was just looking for.
Okay.
I didn't see one, but what I did see was that it's an 8,000 square foot lot, and I'm saying,
But that's only if you did the plan multi-lot.
right, and not
You want to do
subdividing.
one lot.
One lot.
Which has to have a commercial component.
I don't, does it have to?
That's what I'm
It
reading.
helps, doesn't it?
I don't know how that evolved, but.
I read that too and said,
It is interesting.
yeah, that there was a commercial component, but, I drove through the projects next to, that one and the one next to it, and I couldn't find a commercial component.
Well, it says a PMLD is 80, that developed into a formally associated group of commercial building sites on one lot. It has to be commercial. Obviously, the Village of River's Edge has the commercial element. Maybe that was somehow extended to Pinellas.
But where this is C4, isn't this a commercial site?
Well, he's talking about making it residential, so that's by definition.
No, under the C4, doing a residential use in the C4. Isn't that an allowed use?
That was the way I read it, but.
I'm pretty sure
But
it is.
it also said that they had lot sizes of 8,000, that's where it got
But that's only if you were
confusing.
chopping it up into additional
Okay.
lots.
Then you don't have to chop it up.
There is a density requirement, 4 units per acre, so he's well within it.
So, Tom, where's the,
No, it does list age-restricted dwellings as a use, so
Right.
I don't know how that's commercial, but it lists it that way. So, I'd say it's an allowed use.
So, the fact that the land encompasses two towns, is that a factor in terms of, why you're showing this as, one way in and out as opposed to the traffic flow and having?
Well, I'm doing that, I actually laid it up that way for two reasons. The zoning is very, very different in the two towns. This has a C4 and this has, I think.
What does the RT mean?
60,000
oh,
square foot lots.
Oh,
But
down
the other
here.
thing is, I believe, when I spoke with National Heritage, very secretive about what's here, and the only one they're going to tell is the landowner. But the sense I got is that they haven't really found anything here in terms of actual, endangered species. But this is part of their nesting and roaming around area, and they come up through here. And if you look at the maps, it all starts back here and comes up through here and ends up in this area. So I felt that they're probably going to look for a connection to be maintained between this wetland. That's the only reason they'd be going here, right, in this area here. And you accomplish that by ending this here and maybe doing a street lot up in this area here. I haven't been to them yet, but my sense is that that's going to weigh pretty heavily with them.
And just looking at the scale, this is significantly longer than 500 feet here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at least twice that, I would think.
I think if you look at cul-de-sacs, though, it's probably 3 times.
Yeah.
But if you look at cul-de-sacs, any place where there's a loop, and there are 2 loops here, that's not counted as part of the cul-de-sac. The only.
Well, it is here.
It is in this town?
Clearly defined in zoning.
Oh, so you have defined it in the zoning that way, okay. So it'd be a really long cul-de-sac. And is it in your subdivision regs or in your zoning?
It's in the rules and regulations.
It's in rules and regs. So it's something that could be waived.
We are hesitant to waive.
Yeah, I understand.
There would have to be
if we're zoning, there's no
a
waiving.
very good reason
Right.
to waive it.
Right.
I've
Or else
been
we
here
wouldn't,
for
yeah.
12 years, and it's been waived once.
Once, yeah.
And that was for an
It was for like 30
environmental
feet.
reason.
That was about 30 feet, you were right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. It is a long cul-de-sac. The fact of the matter is, there are 2 ways in and out, and that's why a lot of places, the loops, and I think some towns went back and changed it after they got the ruling on that. But that's why they didn't include loops in the dead ends, because there's 2 ways in and out. If a tree falls here, or if something happens here, you can still get around here. This is where the real problem is, back here. But if your regulations have it, and it has it there very clearly, then the entire thing would be.
I think that
It's
kind of road is specifically not allowed, right?
Measured from the nearest, from the through street, 500 feet from the through street, so whether there's a loop or not, doesn't matter, it wouldn't meet it.
Yeah. And the through street here would be,
Holbrook.
right. So this would require then a waiver of that, and it's a pretty big waiver, is what you're saying. It'd be a difficult one to get.
Yeah, and one thing I would point out that I like, and this is consistent with the session, a year and a half, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
in terms of open space development, we're having those types of areas of open space. I mean, they can be very attractive. You can put a flag in there, you can really get some type of central green space for the development, so.
Well, Bristol
I mean,
Pond Estates is a
talk about
version of
smart
that.
development.
That's right.
I
This
mean,
is, I'm just going to give you a little bit of my background for 1 minute. My company was Hallmark out of Hopkinton, and I've done a tremendous amount of development in that town for 30 years. I wrote this open space bylaw in that town in 1985, and it was approved in that town. I did the first open space subdivision. It's Highland Park. It's all around the Hopkinton Golf Course up there. It's 250 acres, and that was the first one that open space bylaw is adopted by the MAPC. It's in 100 towns right now in the Commonwealth. So everything I've ever done is along these lines. And here, and the reason I laid that out was not just within here, because those are very attractive, but all of the rest of this space here stays that way too. So when you look at the density and the total acreage, the number's very, very low. It's just over an acre. And make it 17. You know, so it'd be a unit an acre, you know, in a site like this. In an area where everything's already disturbed. It's a hayfield. And that's where the homes would go. All these trees would get preserved. Whatever exists here in the way of endangered species, you know, this is probably the most dangerous place they could be if they live here, because that's hayed and continues to be hayed, and that's where the homes would be now. So, so.
How many structures do you have on that sketch?
I put 20 in here, and that's the size of this with a two-car garage. And those are building envelopes. Those are big building envelopes. They're 60 by 40. So they would be, these houses would fit in here someplace and would accommodate different designs and things like that. So this accommodates anything that would ever be built here that would look like that, because that falls in here very, very nicely. So anyway, when they gave me that to look at, my first reaction was, well, you're pretty much relegated to a loop road. But then the more I looked at it, I went out and walked the site, and I said, gee, this is a great site. And that's when I laid something out like this, because I think it would be a good use of that site, and I think there'd be a huge market for something like that.
Yeah, well, and you really don't feel as though you'd be able to get a secondary egress out of there, huh? Because it would just, this would come right up to about here, right?
It comes up, you can see how it fits right here. So it comes right up to the border here. There's no reason you couldn't put maybe a gravel road or something like that as a second egress, or do you have to have it paved? Because now you got to go to Millis, right? That's
Yeah.
the other problem.
Yeah.
Right? It is, what are they going to ask us? They're not going to have any houses on it. If we just had a second road for access and egress and it was just gravel, we wouldn't have to go to them like that. As long as this board is satisfied that that road's adequate and it's built to a certain standard. But there's a little bit of new territory when it comes to that, because there's another town involved. Actually, I drove it. You can drive it right now. So actually, I have a Jeep, and it's just a regular Jeep. You know, it's not anything that's rough terrain or anything like that. And I drove all through that field and drove right down there. So
So there's not a lot of trees or anything in that, or that hay continues all the way?
The way it shows, it's hayed field.
It's a pretty wide open spot.
Yeah. And that's when I went, you know, I actually had done a report for them, which was a pretty easy thing to do. But then I said, I ought to at least go out there and take a look at it. And I did, and when I went out there and looked at it, I said, oh, that's a pretty nice spot. And there's a real good buffer here between this property and this one. And then this hill here, you know, is, you know, if you were developing this and there was no species here, I mean, that's an Esca. So a little bit of work with his neighbor, and you got a heck of a gravel deposit here, which is the last thing in the world you'd want to see. You'd hate to see that Esca come out of here and the gravel all removed and all those trees gone, which is why, you know, the right way to do this is to do it with a high density subdivision and really shrink the area. Which what this area, by the way, if you look at around the outside and bring it back in here, it's about 4.3 acres out of the 17.5. So the rest of it stays the way it is. And I'm counting this these areas here in the 4.3, so.
What are you looking for?
And I knew the tough thing. I knew the tough thing was going to be the dead end.
Yeah,
So, it
you
is.
must have heard that in the earlier meeting, when everyone was asking about the secondary egress.
Yeah, I did. But this isn't just this town, Towns get concerned about dead ends. I think the bigger issue, I think there's some validity to what I said before about the loops, because the loops themselves are really, there's two ways to access and egress on a loop. And the other thing really comes down to the number of units that's on the dead end, more than a dead end. Yeah, there's a dead end in a town nearby here that has 164 houses on it. I lived in Hopkinton. I lived on a dead end street that had 112 houses on it. Now I had all kinds of loops and everything on the inside, but there's only one way in and out of here. So, but.
Well, have you gotten enough information from us?
Well, I don't have, the only thing I don't have is a good feel as to, is this something that's, and if I came in here with a regular presentation, it would certainly come off a lot better than coming in with sketches and maps and kind of having to do this the way I did. But I also did not want to give them feedback on what they had here, without first posing the question to you folks and seeing what you thought. Because if we can do something like this, the value of the land is quite different than it otherwise would be. And in some ways, if this was a ZBA, I would argue this is a hardship. Because of the fact that you have endangered. You deal. This is a what's the term they use? Priority habitat. Because it's a priority habitat, it keeps you fully developing that parcel. So.
Just another point. Technically, the subdivision rules and regs apply to subdivisions, and this is not a subdivision.
This would be a site plan review, probably, right?
Yeah, special permit.
Yeah.
And if he could provide the emergency access too, I'm not saying one way or the other, but that's just some weight in his favor, I guess.
Yeah, but even in these site plans, we required a connection to the adjacent one. Because this one went in, that was required. This one went in, and it was required to connect here also. So because they're both fairly deep. Oh, one of them's, yeah. You can see where they connect. Because they're both fairly deep. They're separate developments.
Right. You could see here, I don't know who owns this, probably the association, but it'd be interesting to see if they'd be interested in allowing a connection there. But the other, not very likely. But again, it's an emergency access and egress, so it's not a.
The owners were in here extensively concerned about through traffic. What they put in. Traffic count.
They didn't like the other connection.
The UPS trucks.
It was a big issue.
They're the ones that termed it Hatfield and McCoy.
It's about to get worse, huh? Over on this end, on that end, they own the property, so they could do it. It's a question of what would you require would probably be the biggest question now.
Which end you're talking about? Where
going out this
road.
way.
Yeah. And what's on the backside of that? And we said there's some.
Well, this is a huge Eska.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing. Here's the Eska right here.
Right.
That's just one huge gravel deposit. There's a lot of money sitting there, but you can't touch it because I'm not sure what's there. I'm about to find out, but there's something there. So.
Is that a house on the backside of it?
Yeah, you see that? Yeah.
Where's that?
Where's it get access?
Yeah, where's that coming from?
Here it is. See, here it is right.
Power
lines,
yeah.
This is
Someone living off the grid. On the grid. No, just not connected.
Did they get a tax bill?
So it sounds like, it sounds like if we could provide a second means of access or egress, then that'd be something you might think about.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to comment that
Yeah.
it really comes down to the design. I think these very long emergency ways just are inherently problem. If it's a couple of 100 feet long and everybody knows and it's well maintained, if you're going cross-country with a gravel road,
It's there.
you know, obviously winter conditions, but that's probably only, you know, a few days a year, but, you know, nobody's going to go through there and maintain it. It's not, you know, it's just problematic.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's a long way from here to there. And we're going through another. Yeah, but if we don't. Well,
So was that an 80 scale, so what, about 800 feet?
yeah.
Expensive road to nowhere.
So I think what I'm hearing is it doesn't work, right?
Looks like it's problematic.
Yeah.
Well, you should research with Millis what their requirements would be
Yeah.
to just build that road.
Well,
You may be able to wrap that right down into Millis.
What is, and what zoning, zone R2? Oh, but you have the heritage issue there.
Yeah, you have to have.
Yeah, but if it's just the road and it's, you know, for an emergency access and.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, that's why again, I haven't met with National Heritage, but I think the road's going to be an issue. Because I think the connection is here, through here. And in fact, they probably would ask us to pull that back a little bit, to circle back a little bit, is my guess, but.
And in terms of where that sensitive area begins here, if you were to...
See, I think it ends
This-
here. I think it starts back in here.
Yeah.
And it comes up into this area.
And how far over in this direction?
Well, I think it's because of the wetlands
Right
Hey, you
there.
could always approach Pin Oaks and ask about the access connection.
These guys here.
No?
But that sounded like it was.
Well, you know,
Bring a
it's
speedboat with
it's
you.
just a question, right? They can
Yeah.
say no to you.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not worth folding your cards until you've explored that option.
Yeah, well, this is close. That's why I thought that. And you could even,
It's,
yeah.
Well, that one could be just an emergency access and not open all the time.
Well, that's why
They might be
I
less-
said a gravel road. I'm saying, most towns, you don't need full pavement, you know, and when you loop into something. You just need to be able to get out of there in an emergency. In fact, I'm doing one right now, and it's, you just need to know you can get out if you have to, or get in if you have to.
Well, we have had temporary connections that were not paved.
Right.
They had gravel, but they were temporary. They ended up having roads built eventually.
Yeah.
Like Keeney Pond was like that.
Right up here, the top of the hill. Turner
Okay.
Street.
Well, I'll just tell them that it'd be a challenge. It's a possibility if we can overcome
Yeah.
that one, but it's just a tough one to overcome.
Nice idea, though, good layout.
Yeah, I can't think. You know what's gonna happen? Where was it?
Yeah.
Right? It's gonna be a loop road through there. The house is every 200 feet, or every 100 feet on this side. You know, I mean, it's just, that's how the plan is just so preferable to that plan, but how do you deal with that? So I guess that's the question.
Well, if it's going to be a loop road and you're going to have full-size lots on this side, you could come in with your development right there for the Norfolk side and just tie into it. They
Yeah.
might put a road in with
See,
3 houses.
the only way to make
You're only gonna get 2 houses here,
Oh.
and you can accomplish that with 2 street lots.
But it gives you the whole other development. the whole other Norfolk side by putting the two houses on a road over there.
And then you're bringing up the heritage aspect, which I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You have to tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it.
But-
You gotta sit down with them, because they'll identify, and you may have done it when you're saying there are overwintering paths leading to the wetland, but that's what they'll do. They'll pick the critical habitat areas depending on what the species is. You know, the box turtle was, strangely enough, like cleared areas and rocky areas and with full sun, so,
I learned a lot about turtles.
you know, if that's what you've got, that's what they'll try to preserve,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I had a golf course project in Hopkinton that I lost over turtles, so, back in 2003. But, and they put little transmitters on them to see where they go and everything.
Yes, yeah.
They've been watching these guys for a long time. They know their habits. They can look at a place like this and have a good feel for what happens.
You know, the flip side of it is, though, a lot of the areas designated as priority habitat, if they actually study them in detail, oftentimes they don't find individuals, so they may be more, I mean, you really have to sit down, it's a site-specific
Yeah,
thing.
and the only person they'll do it with is the landowner.
Yeah.
They won't even do it conservation.
Well, you have to bring in a particular plan, they won't do alternatives, so
Yeah.
you gotta,
You have to come in with very specific.
yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for coming in.
Well, thank you.
Nice to meet you, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so there's going to be a town planner search committee. Anyone feel like joining the search committee?
Do we know anything more about this position?
The town planner?
Has the job description been
No.
drafted?
No.
the first task
You'd
of
find
this,
out when you went to the when you went to the search committee meeting. That's when you'd
Do we know
find
who else
out.
has been
Do we
appointed
have,
to it? Or what
No.
the makeup of the board's going to be?
Did you want to talk to us about something?
Yes, I do need to speak with you.
Oh, okay. Come on up.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No problem. It's a little bit short notice.
Grab a
I
mic.
guess.
Up. There you go.
My name is David Brazington. I own the warehouse at 282 Dedham Street where Provo Liquor is in the front of.
Oh.
Oh.
So I have a tenant in the building. He would like to expand, and I have a spot for him, and but he needs loading docks. I currently have loading docks on the front, but they were filled in to a height of 30 inches, and he needs them to be truck height, which a 30-inch dock, I don't know why they ever did that, but it doesn't function or work for anybody. So I was in the process of doing that, and I was told I had to stop. He said I don't need a permit for it, but I need to come to the planning board for it, which I don't understand, but I'm here for that reason.
Oh, because it's an alteration of the site plan?
I guess, okay.
How
So
long has that
it's-
site plan been in? That's
I
been a
don't-
building around for a long time.
Yeah.
What do you do,
Well, I've
you're
gotta-
excavating? You have to excavate in front of the docks?
I need to, yeah, the docks are about 30 inches, so I need to get them to 48 inches.
So in terms of like water management and such,
Yeah,
that's
I'm sure
weird.
that's what it
The
is.
pavement goes from the
And everything.
building out. There are drains out there in the parking lot. They'll go down their 18, bring it out a certain level, but I am putting a drain from the back of there, tying into the drain that's to the front, if you will, going underground or what, they'll
And
trench it out.
That's why you...
Bring the water, bring the water out, but, in order to get my tenant in there, I need to give him docks, or he can't
But
move in
if I
there.
remember that building, though, there's existing bays and everything.
Yes, exactly, yeah, they're there.
You're
They
be regrading
filled in.
everything, though. That's where the problem comes.
To the site.
Because they have to dig it out.
I think there was also several years ago a case where there was work done there without approval of the site.
I think
so
that
may
you're
be
right
why
about that, yeah.
It got kicked here.
Okay, I don't remember that, but
It was quite a while
probably
ago.
before I was paying attention.
I mean, I can't think of any other aspect other than the stormwater.
Yeah, that's got to be the only thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Unless,
that's-
well, how big are the trucks? Is there is
They
there
need to
an issue with
get
the?
truck height things in there, 48
It's a-
inches. I mean, a
it's a
dock
stated
at
height
30
now.
inch.
Well, yeah, but what size trucks? I mean, because I think that the problem that we had the last time was that the area where the loading docks wasn't deep enough to accommodate the larger trucks.
Thank you.
Like a tractor
I mean,
trailer.
horizontally,
back here?
it wasn't,
No, that's, from a distance
Out
It looks
here.
like you have What's the depth from there, from the driveway? in?
Right.
From here in,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's long enough for a full truck.
So it's more than 53 feet?
Yes, it's more than 53 feet. So, yeah, the truck will be not even close to the entrance. It'll be in there, but I've got to make them truck height or it doesn't work. And the issue I'm facing is getting asphalt now.
So are you going to have to, the top of your garage, do you have to do anything there?
The top?
Basically your opening in your garage bays.
Oh, no, it's all, they're existing docks, 8 by 10 normal docks and everything else.
Building stays as is, it's site work.
He's got to get the wheels of the truck down.
I gotta get the truck, exactly. You understand this
Chemical industry for 30 years.
So you're lowering.
Coming up on it.
I'm taking,
Okay, I got
yeah,
it.
take the gravel out here and.
That's why there's an issue.
Just slope it on either side.
Got it.
Bring it out, the wheels get down, okay, now we're good, and we'll put a drain in the back, because I have the same.
Have you got an
concern.
engineer to draw this all out yet?
No,
Because we could say, we'll put you on our December 3rd agenda, but you're going to have to get all this stuff in and have it reviewed by these guys. So how long is it till? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
How many
Well,
bays you
that's-
doing?
I'm sorry? Just these two. He only needs 2. This is the one I'm really concerned about getting him in there, because obviously asphalt, you can't get it after another couple of weeks now.
Bobby seems to think.
He's moving here, he's trying to be in by the 15th, but he can't do business if he doesn't have docks, so
15th of what?
November.
Can we empower Steve to work with PSC and grant him the authority to approve?
I mean, are we?
That would be wonderful, please.
You know what I'm saying?
Do we really need a full site plan?
Well, it should be a stormwater review.
Well, we
It
do
should
have
be,
to have
you know,
something
drainage.
drawn for an alteration of the
The
plan. We
only
have to have
concern I
a,
would have is which way is the water going when
Right.
they get down 4.5 feet. It might come away from the building anyway, in which case you do nothing. And the worst case is if some of it goes back towards the building, you put a little area drain in there. It's pretty.
Well, they've
Yeah, it
already,
is.
the contractor said he's done 100 of these things, whatever, but they came to
you
this
should have
drain.
known that he
Well,
would.
I knew it. But there is a drain out here to the front, which doesn't really show in the picture, but they went in and measured the height of that pipe coming in there to the height that we need to get, and it will pitch away. So,
do.
yeah, they've already done those measurements. They called Dig Safe, they've done all those things, there wasn't any issues there. We just need to be able to dig it and pave it, and the paving is the difficult part. But the tenant this is the only thing left for him to move into, and that was the whole deal.
Sounds
He
fairly
needs docks,
easy.
like
I
can't.
could go over it with Tom, but we do have to have a drawing.
As-built.
Because
Ultimately,
we
we
have
need
to have
as-built.
something that goes into the record for the building, for an alteration.
Which I'm happy to do. I'm just really concerned about getting asphalt, because
Well,
at a certain point, they close down, and
Tom
that
is recommending
kills me,
that
so-
the board.
Tom again.
No, Tom.
Looking at it.
No, Jeff was recommending that Tom and I get together with your new drawing and go over it. And he's asking whether or not the board would say it's okay for me to agree in their stead.
I think, it's a minor modification. I'd love to accommodate this guy trying to grow his business.
Really like
Does
to
that
get the
sound
tenant in
reasonable
there
to
so
you,
they can do
Michelle?
business, because
Okay,
this,
so they're going to allow that. They're going to allow you to submit a drawing of what your conditions are going to look like when it's done.
Get your grades, your pitches.
With your grades, where the drainage
Right.
is going to go, have your engineer do all that stuff, and Tom and I will go over it, so you won't have to wait for December 3rd. Sooner you can get that done, you can let
Okay.
Betsy know, and she'll tell us, and we'll go over the plan.
okay.
When you came to a price with your contractor, did he give you a plan of what he was going to do? Just
Or did you just describe it?
No, he's done other docks, he's done work in Walpole. He came from other property owners that I know. When referred to him, that's how I found him. And since he's done it so many other times,
Maybe we could
it's...
just have an on-site meeting, and if the contractor's there, and if he's got the grades staked out, and if it seems to work, it might be okay.
But then
We
still
don't need a
follow up
plan.
with an
But we still need
We need an
as-built
as-built
plan,
plan. We
yeah.
need-
I'm happy to do that. I'm just very concerned about getting my tenant in there. If I don't have a tenant, he can break the lease. Bad things happen. So
All right,
I'm just under
tomorrow's
the gun.
Friday, I'll probably leave work early.
Yeah. If you want to do
Yeah.
it tomorrow, it's fine.
So,
Meet over there tomorrow?
Tuesdays.
That would be wonderful, yeah.
Steve, what time's good for you?
There's no way for me to get out of Boston before 4:30. I mean,
It's gotta be dark.
get here
Yeah,
by
it's fine.
4:30.
Yeah.
No, yeah, get here by 4:30.
We'll bring our flashlights. We'll be all set, so.
So you have to have your engineer there, though.
The contractor or
Well,
engineer?
contractor.
The contractor works for it, because he's the one that went, pulled the drain up, measured down to the pipe, measured, did his, whatever he does. We got the pitch, we got the elevation, he knows a little bit more about digging than I do, but
Yeah.
I need to get it done as
So I'll
well.
write it up, and I'll let you guys know everything that we discussed and
So
everything.
do you want to do it at 4:30 tomorrow, Steve? Is that good for
4:30
you?
tomorrow, yeah.
We'll meet at the site, your
Okay.
site, 4:30 tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful.
so do we even need a motion, I guess?
I don't think that we need a
Formalize
motion.
this, or-
Well, unless you
Gentlemen?
want to.
I mean, formalize if you want to. I make a motion that we appoint Steve to handle this off-site
Okay, do we have a second
modification
on
to
that?
the Provo liquor store. How's that?
Yeah. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
All right. Oop, Stealing a
Betsy,
pen.
have your contact information? Oh, she's not going to be here. You have a
I'm
card?
not gonna be teaching.
I do not have a card on me, but I will be happy to write my name and phone number down on a piece of paper.
That would be great.
Yeah, we'd like to do more business in town, not less, so we don't want you to lose your tenant.
Oh, my God, I was panicking. Constructive cancellation of a lease.
Kinder, gentler planning board, right,
If you
Steve?
want to leave
Yeah,
your contact
yeah.
information, I'll
We try to be.
talk
Well,
to
we've been trying to be for a long time.
I know.
We've got
So
review and
before we
approval down to
accommodate this
48
gentleman, we're
hours.
talking about what is this town planner thing about?
Well, they always have a search committee, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing that you're going to review a whole bunch of people that are going to answer the advertisement. So it's the search committee is going to interview everyone.
Oh,
Who's,
thank you.
I don't
whose
know who-
appointment is it?
Is your
It's
glasses?
the planning board has an appointment, I'm sure
Selectmen's good.
conservation probably has
We're
one,
good.
selectmen probably have
Those your
one.
glasses?
Board of Health, maybe?
Yeah,
Glasses?
probably
Not mine,
Board of
the
Health.
guy before me.
Oh.
Oh, Ron Roof.
Oh.
Driving with them?
She's why can't I drive?
If you're looking for a volunteer, I'd be happy
Okay,
to
good.
represent the
Excellent.
board in that process and update the board in terms of
Thank you.
what it's about, basically, because I realize we don't have a whole lot of information, but there were funds that were approved at town meeting for a
Half year.
planner to.
Right, to start a half year in. I
Yeah,
remember.
to service the town, and I don't know that it was ever to the point where it was specific about exactly what that planner, what the
Right,
role
the
and
position's there, the
responsibility
money's
would be.
there, but we
So-
don't know what they're talking about.
Right, so that's,
Just ask when, if you guys, I'm assuming you're going to kind of put a scope of services maybe together, if you could bring that back, or at least share it with us before it's voted on, maybe.
absolutely.
Now, wasn't it discussed at one time that this position would be also a zoning enforcement officer?
I don't remember that.
I don't recall that part.
I don't remember
No,
hearing.
Donna
Donna
remembers
says
it.
yes.
To separate it from the building inspector's role, I think that could very well be the case.
Yes.
I recall
I
some
remember.
conversation about it.
Never question Donna, she goes everywhere.
Yeah, Donna, DJ knows.
I don't think I've ever heard of a town planner being the
Actually-
zoning enforcement officer.
Don't know a town that does it.
Huh?
I don't know a town that does it.
Yeah, right,
Chatham.
I've never heard.
Do they? Really?
Chatham, really? Well,
Building inspector's not the zoning enforcement officer.
Well, the BRA accepted, but, regular
Well,
towns.
BRA
yeah,
is the BRA.
Regular towns, it's uncommon.
And the CPC, Michelle, would you like to do the CPC?
I am tied up with my commitment on the Stop and Shop Committee, which I have an update on. But I think
Oh.
between that and my other work commitments, I'm not able to take on
No?
another meeting.
Well,
Sorry.
Peter, how about you? CPC? Or are you going to go in there and try to kill it?
Right, they don't have any money left.
Well, remember, Walter's not here, so he is another viable.
Yeah,
but
that is
also-
true.
But Walter also stepped away from the EBC because he felt he was a little overwhelmed.
Well, I think he just had concerns about representing, two different.
How about
different
this?
boards, and at least
If Walter doesn't want to do it, I'll do it.
But you have to work as a team member.
Community preservation?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't buy swamps, I'm sorry. I think there's good uses of funds out there, I just have not agreed with their purchases in the past.
I think it would
So-
be good to have a devil's advocate on some committee, just.
I thought that's why Mike Kaliza was on this year. They put him on as a
Schedule the next
advocate.
meeting.
Who, Mike's on it?
He's on for the ZBA, I believe.
Okay, I'm going to remind you guys that your contracts expire on 12/3/13. We're certainly not going to, well, wait a minute. Didn't we extend that?
We did last one, 2/12.
Huh? We extended 2/12/3.
Because we never get to it in November meeting, so we definitely get to it by the December.
Yeah, because it was
Well,
expired in
we're never
October.
going to get to it
Guess
by then. We're going to have to extend this again. Does anyone have a reasonable date to extend it to?
Next
Find a
year.
reasonable.
To what?
Well,
To get the advertisement out?
To be able to get everything done in order to get all the work done. I think
Well, let's at least agree that it shouldn't go beyond the point at which this board may not be the same board.
Well, I was thinking of pushing it out to maybe.
That's what I'm just saying.
I was thinking of February.
I'm trying to bracket this.
I was thinking of February, because we're going to get to December, and then all of a sudden, we're not going to have another meeting
Say
until
February,
the end
not
of
May. I
January
like
or
the
something.
May.
You know what I mean? So I think we have to push it out at least a couple of months this time, not just a month.
I mean, if we're gonna piecemeal it, why don't we just go to the end of
Go to the end of the term.
the
And have-
current, year, fiscal
May.
year?
Oh, what's fiscal year?
Or if Jeff doesn't want it to cross over, then to the end of, like.
Well, then a
May.
new board would be deciding on their consultants.
Right.
Do you want to push it to the end of this fiscal year?
Well, I said that just because, we have a certain amount of experience in terms of what we're looking for in the resource, so.
Well, I don't think this whole board is going to be replaced.
I'm just saying. And sometimes I look for milestone dates to at least bracket these discussions, right?
Well, I think that Peter's suggestion of going to the end of the fiscal year is probably reasonable, because that'll give us plenty of time to get advertisements out and everything.
And I'm very concerned with this town planner, how it's gonna affect Chino.
Just it might give us a better handle on what it all means.
All right, so what's the actual date of the end of the?
June 30th?
June 30th.
2014.
All right. Does someone want to make that motion? Peter, that would be you.
I'll make a motion to extend both of the consultants' contracts until June 30th, 2014.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That way we don't have to extend it again in February.
Right, yeah, you're right.
Does somebody want to be on the search committee for the planner?
I thought Jeff was.
Jeff just volunteered.
Do we need to
Did he
appoint?
volunteer?
Were you asleep over there?
I think I may have been.
Just resting our eyes.
Doctor pay, how long were you asleep?
So I have a question. So Greg, can you just get sworn in now that the 4 votes, or do they have to go through the motion?
Still go to the town clerk.
Right, but does he even have to bother going to the selectmen? It's a moot point.
Well, it is kind of a moot point, but we want to make sure.
They'll probably still take it just to,
Yeah.
clean it all up, but.
If
That's
it's a
right.
joint appointment, is it a majority of the 2 boards?
Yes.
Yeah.
So. that's
Between
why
the
it's a moot
selectmen
point.
and the affected board.
That's why
Yes,
it's a moot point. We've already voted the majority.
right.
So do you want a quick update on our meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
That finally,
Who'd you meet with?
we, Guy, I have his card. I have his card here.
From Stop and Shop?
Yeah, they're actually with, I don't know if it's Ahold or
It's
Ahold.
Ahold.
Ahold. Guy Stutz
Oh, yeah.
and Linda Costanzo. Guy is the vice president for real estate, and Linda is the director for real estate. It was an okay meeting. We showed them the video that was presented for a town meeting, talked to them about some of the changes we've made in our bylaws, and then some of the ensuing development that's really started to meet the vision, all of which has been accomplished in a relatively short time period. But what we were trying to paint for them was that Norfolk is changing and has changed in the last handful of years, definitely since they've bought the property, and that the property that they own is significant and key part of our vision. And so we're very interested in moving forward and moving them off the mark, whether that means them developing it or them selling it or something happening. But we're really, really serious because we have activity, we have real motion, we have real progress. So we're really kind of putting them on the spot for, where are you at with your end of things. So, they kind of played a little bit of, oh, I didn't really know that, I didn't know this, but then you'd raise certain things and they had very specific answers to very certain things when it favored them. So I think they were a little bit of showboating us. They did commit to looking into a few things for us. They committed into looking into, again, the economic viability of a smaller grocery store that they would develop at that site. They promised to look into the lease rate that they have marketed right now on the vacant building that's up next to Walgreens. They claim to know nothing about its current value that they're trying to lease it at and why it would be so high and, all of that. They promised to consider maybe talking to some of our developers in town. Your name came up, John Weddleton's name came up. Even just talking with the town itself about potentially, selling the property to the town. So in that fact, they actually don't own that property. It's Eastern Development.
They own this, no, Eastern owns the grocery site.
Eastern owns the grocery site, yeah. So that's the site we're talking about. They will go to Eastern Development and just ask Eastern Development what their asking price is. They guaranteed us it's going to be in the millions of dollars. So they really kind of promised a whole lot of nothing. They did also promise us another meeting in January where they'd follow up on all these to-do activities where they said that they would look into these things. But it wasn't incredibly promising. They kept claiming that there's hope and they were happy to hear about our development and happy to hear we wanted to do something. Their first question was, does Norfolk really want a grocery store? And I said, that's kind of a strange question. Why would you start the meeting with that? And I said that to them. Why would you even ask that question? We've just told you we want a grocery store.
What was the answer?
I don't know, they didn't say a whole lot of anything. Interestingly enough, their CFO lives in town. She has a family, 2 children, school-age children in town.
Why wouldn't she want to stop and shop in town?
I don't know. Canali?
She's probably watching us now.
I doubt it. She didn't sound very in touch with the items. She didn't know that we had, changed bylaws in town and had high-density residential developments under review.
So, if your concerns are in fact validated in that nothing really happens, now that we know how to install durable crosswalks, we need to revisit.
We do.
And now, we know what we need to specify, and we can effectively negotiate with their attorneys.
Absolutely.
And winter's coming, so I think we do it in the spring, or perhaps start the process here over the winter, leading towards meetings in the spring so that we can complete the work. I don't know a whole lot about it, once again, in terms of bonds and such, but some of them have expiration, and there's been an outstanding bond here for quite some time. So I mean, we really need to finish that business.
Well, if I could predict, I'd say we meet with them in January, and they're going to say, we're not going to change the rate that we're trying to rent this property for because it doesn't make economic sense. We're not gonna develop a small grocery store because it doesn't make economic sense. We're gonna,
Or it's in
we
their
could
long-term plan.
And they won't even say that. We could sell you the property, but it's gonna be for $3 or $4 million. So we're gonna get a whole lot of no's, but we could continue the conversation and say, well, we've kind of struck out with you here, so let's take it the next step and start negotiating on some other details. So there might be another venue for us to pull that in.
You know, the twofold, when we did a pro forma on the sites here as well as the empty building, it's not only just the lease rate on the shell building, but it's the the amount they attribute out of the small package treatment plant that's attributed to each site. And when we ran the numbers, it's a fortune. I mean, ideally, the best thing to do is someone, and I actually approached one of the trustees up there, because, Matt Borelli would consider actually selling the small package treatment plant, and that would be something, if I was a condo association, very interested in participating in, because they're on a 43, 57 part, I think 57% is attributed to the heavy use, i.e. the bedrooms, and 43% in the commercial. But when we were running the numbers, what Walgreens, what all these other parcels that they are still paying as part of the operation of the small package treatment plant. I mean, I can give you the numbers where the money they're just wasting, but to a company like Ahold,
Well,
it's a rounding error.
that's what
nothing.
he kept claiming to us, you actually, the way you're talking makes it sound like you think we're actually trying to block somebody from building a grocery store in here. That's just not the truth. And I said, do you think we fell off the turnip cart yesterday, really? I mean, for you to pretend. He said, it doesn't do us any good business-wise to have empty buildings. It doesn't do us any good business-wise to have property we own that, that we're leasing and paying for a lease and then not developing. And we're thinking, sure it could if you're writing it off as a loss on your books. Absolutely, it could do you good business. Otherwise, you've been there for 13 years.
Which is the reason why
wouldn't
Eastern
you?
owns it, and they lease it back so they can write it off.
That's right.
Versus land non-performing. They can't.
Right. So that's what I mean, is they were, talking to us as if we just don't know anything at all about real estate or development or marketing. And they tried to say at one point that the only reason that vacant building is up is because we forced them to build that building.
Yeah, well, we did.
As part of the Walgreens
And
development.
It was good. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Well, Jim Liam corrected him and said it was suggested. Nothing was forced. It was suggested, and you still had to run your pro forma numbers to decide if, in the end, if it was in your best interest to build that building or not. And so you had to have done some analysis.
Well,
to
because it was a
understand.
shared parking issue.
It was a shared parking, yeah.
Right. That's what the qualifier.
They couldn't have the parking on that building's lot without a building.
So it was kind of interesting that they came to this meeting not really understanding a lot, but could right away pull out, well, you forced us to build that building. They knew all the details, they knew all the history, they selectively decided when they wanted to pull it out or not pull it out, so.
All right. We're done for the night?
Yes, thanks.
Yep, just got 2 pages.
Oh, do we have things that we have to sign?
Just 2.
All right, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, second, thanks.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye.